It's Thursday, so that means Dr. Mike is here to fix your life and your lineup.
Prey on their desperation. That's my advice as a psychologist. Prey on the desperation of others.
You totally need that plaque in your office, Dr. Mike.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time, this is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin. Hello, Wausau, Waukesha, Wisconsin Rapids, Amory, Oshkosh, Richland Center, and Madison tonight. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
And to everyone who is listening to this later on the podcast, everyone who's listening to this streaming not in one of those cities, so many ways to listen to this show, so many ways to listen to all of the civic media shows. Welcome to the first day of the last day of the year. First day of the month of the last month of the whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes, because today
Is December 1st.
It is December 1st.
It's officially holiday season.
Yes.
I know many people start prior to December 1st. I feel like this is a good marker. It's like now officially it feels like the holiday lights can go up, the decorations can go up, the holiday parties can begin, and you can start thinking about how much food you're going to eat this month and all of your New Year's resolutions you're going to set for next month.
Just all the New Year's resolutions that you probably aren't going to fulfill anyway.
The goals,
Yes.
the intentions, whatever you want to label it as far as
Sure.
it not being something that you can break within the first 15 days and then go, well, back to normal.
Exactly.
Jane Madnair, how are you doing this
Well,
morning?
you made a really good point about it finally being the holiday season. That means I can officially bring out my light up hat, scarf, and gloves that I just ordered.
You have a light up hat, scarf, and gloves. Are you going to sort of wear that in the producer booth every day?
I may. The only thing is I haven't quite figured out how to replace the batteries, so I don't want to use all my electricity up before like Christmas week.
It's probably one of those annoying ones where you have to have the tiny little screwdriver
Yes, those
to get it open.
yes.
It doesn't just pop open. You got to find there's multiple different tools that have to be used to be able to
get at
change the
that?
battery.
Yeah.
So then you just throw it away. You're just like, I don't know where this little tiny screwdriver is.
So I'm going to have to parse out my electric use over the next couple of weeks.
Ration it.
Yes.
Just ration it.
Yes.
It's only for special occasions. Or you
Right.
could wear it and just not turn it on. Or does it not work like that?
It's not nearly as much fun.
Oh, all right. Well, coming up on today's show, Dr. Mike is back after a little bit of a hiatus.
We've missed him.
We've missed him. I've missed him. At 11:30 is our recurring segment. Dr. Mike fixes your life and your lineup. Let us know. Do you have a question about your love life, your career, your friends, your family? Or do you just need some advice on fixing your lineup? 844-967-2789. That starts at 11:30. And then at 12, you should remember, because every day this show starts with Hello, Wisconsin, which was from That 70s Show, which took place in a fictional town in Wisconsin in the 70s. And now the sequel is here. Well, it's not here yet. The trailer for the sequel is here. That 90s Show, which is going to premiere on Netflix in January, which is a sequel to the very successful, very loved That 70s Show, is kicking off. And I want to know, because I was a child/preteen in the 90s. But for people who were actually teenagers in the 90s, what defined that decade of quintessential Wisconsin in the 90s? Certainly Brett Favre.
Oh, big
Certainly our back-to-back Super Bowl attendance, the Pack Arena. But yeah, I would love to hear from you on. I know some of the things I remember, but I wasn't a teenager, and so what will this show have to do to get it right to be quintessentially Wisconsin
in the 90s?
In the 90s. As a teenager. So we will do that at 12. At 12:30, we're talking to Ari Brown about the record amount of referenda that not only was on people's ballots last month, but also passed last month, and what that means in our lovely segment summarizing Wisconsin Policy Forum reports, because only nerds read Wisconsin Policy Forum reports. And then in the last hour, we want to know, what is the best light display in Wisconsin, in your city? Because it is National Christmas Light Day.
Isn't that exciting?
It's very exciting.
Yes.
And we'll probably talk about our Christmas. Let me see. You already talked to you. You have Christmas decor on your body that lights up. So Christmas lights, indeed. And then finally, I found a forum that was talking about things that are totally normal to us as Americans that to people in other cultures and other countries think is so weird.
Oh, I bet there's so many.
I'm sure as someone who is married to a foreigner,
Yes.
I'm sure some of these things he's said to you. So it'll be interesting to see what these surprises people as far as this is uniquely American. So a lot of fun stuff, but the story I want to start with is not so fun.
No.
But I feels important, not because of the specific story, because I think you probably can gather that unlike some of the other talk shows, I don't always want to talk about the crime because I feel like that always gets a lot of coverage. But talking about the criminal justice system and how we do things, I think is important. As earlier this week, we had Jennifer Dunn on here and talking about her role in the Waukesha District Attorney's Office, working with witnesses and victims, and what does that department or that program do? And so I do think it's important for us to continue talking to people who work inside of our criminal justice system. And I would love to actually maybe get someone on to explain why Wisconsin is in the place of being one of the very few states that still charges children as adults. And I just want to ask, how young is too young to be tried as an adult? And should a 10-year-old, no matter how terrible the crime is, ever be tried as an adult? And I think no. I think that we should be in a place where there's other resources available. And I'm not saying there's not ramifications, but it just, reading the story is just so tragic. And I think in the leadoff for the news, as Terry was reading before we started the show, it made one of the headlines, but I don't even know if teenagers should be tried as an adult, but what is the point of having a distinction of once you're 18, you're an adult, if you can just add the caveat of unless you do something really bad, then you're an adult. And so the story is that's spurring this conversation, though I don't want to spend too much time on the details of this story. There was a 10-year-old boy in Milwaukee who shot and killed his mother in what was not an accident. It turned out to be not an accident, but he eventually admitted that he didn't really show remorse. It was on purpose. It was over. I think he said he shot. It was that he tried to shoot ahead of her, but actually shot her. But he was charged in adult court last week with first-degree reckless homicide, and right now is being held in the county's juvenile detention facility. And like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on the actual details of what we know about the case. I know in the article that I read, reported by Elliot Hughes and Ashley Lutheran of Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, they're not releasing his name. They're not releasing his mother's name. But it sounds like this is a boy who has problems, like actual
and has had for a while.
And has had for a while. And so, but is this the best we can do? And it is very rare. Like cases of this kind of violence with children is very rare. But this is just one of those moments where I go, like, what? Like, WTF, Wisconsin? Because it's our state law. This is not a federal thing. It's our state law that requires children as young as 10 to be charged as adults for certain serious crimes, at least as to start the case. And that includes first-degree intentional homicide, first-degree reckless homicide, and attempted first-degree intentional homicide. And I just, as a prosecutor, how do you start there with a 10-year-old?
I don't even know where to begin, because on the one hand, I don't find this surprising, because if people think that forcing a 10-year-old girl to give birth to her rapist's baby is not a big deal, I can see where the same people would think that sentencing trying a 10-year-old as an adult makes sense for them.
For a terrible crime.
For a terrible crime. On the other hand, we don't have places to treat these people. We closed all of our mental health facilities in the 80s under Reagan. and went to the neighborhood-based models for treatment because we closed our mental health facilities. And I have seen documentaries, this is from a number of years ago, about parents of severely autistic children and the challenges that they have. And the one mother had video of her driving with her son, who's about 10, in the back seat with her 6-year-old daughter. And he is assaulting her as she's driving, pulling her hair, trying to strangle her, hitting his sister. And she said, I have tried for years to get help for him, and there's nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
There's nowhere to go. And I have to believe that when we look at the amount of money that we just spent in this last election cycle, with so many ills we have in society, we could fix them. We've got the money.
Well, you saw that in New York City, they're starting to do involuntary
Pulling people off the streets.
And I haven't read enough about that. And obviously it's just starting. But in the scenarios, whether it's this young child, and it sounds like it was a single mother, and there was repeated cases, and her family stopped helping because they were like, I don't want to babysit this kid.
He's dangerous.
He's dangerous, but where do you go? What do you do? And at least, I mean, bringing it back to the difference, but what I understand and trying to read more about this, the difference between the juvenile system and the adult system, and why 47 other states have started to move towards having more of a difference between how they treat juveniles versus how they treat adults, is because there is more programming in the juvenile system for rehabilitation. And we are, right now, Wisconsin is only one of 3 states that requires 17-year-old defendants to be charged as an adult. Wisconsin law also requires children as young as 10 to be charged as an adult for serious crimes. This is not something that is dictated. This is what we're choosing as a state to have be our state law. And for me, I think that is definitely deserves a WTF, Wisconsin. If you feel like you could defend this, and I would love to hear from you, but I think 10 is too young to be charged as an adult no matter what. 844-967-2789. We'll keep talking about this when we come back from the break. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Stay tuned.
Thought I'd see you one more time again. There's just a few things coming my way this time around now. Thought I'd see you finally now.
Women hear a lot about self-care these days. Advice on ways to relax, exercise, eat healthy, and more. Those are all great. But one of the most important self-care steps we can take is making sure we're financially secure later in life. That means saving money for retirement. It's never too late to start, and it's the kind of self-care that brings peace of mind that lasts. For small steps you can take to save for retirement, visit WeSaySaveIt.org. That's WeSaySaveIt.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Missed your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And we're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app.
So all you folks out there, if you haven't registered to vote, register to vote, get ready to vote. There are so many things on the ballot this November at our freedom, our liberty, and our way of life. But we'll get to all of that this evening.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM. You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show or game, find it wherever you get your podcasts or on our website, civicmedia.us.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Mainly sunny this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 34. South winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Mainly clear skies and quiet again tonight. Lows level off around 27. Cloudy skies expected tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 48. Ample sunshine expected Saturday with daytime highs approaching 26. 37 Sunday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 25 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, Franklin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. As always, we would love to hear from you. Give us a call or shoot us a text at 844-967-2789. That is 844-96-PARTY. This topic doesn't feel like a party. We are talking about my dismay that in our state, 10-year-olds can get charged as an adult for very serious crimes. But that does not feel like justice to me. And this is topical because last week, a 10-year-old boy in Milwaukee was charged for shooting and killing his mother, which is a terrible story. It's tragic. And it just brings up what our state law is when it comes to how we can or choose, we being, I guess, the people, but more specifically prosecutors, child offenders. And I just think with this case, it is a time, it brings this topic up and something that should be looked at as far as changing, in my opinion.
Well, again, it seems like every time we have a mass shooting, it's thoughts and prayers and we need more help for mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts and prayers and we need to focus on mental health. It's not the guns, it's mental health. So what is our collective action going to be to build some kind of structure for people struggling with these mental health issues?
Well, and it's also, I mean, this might feel like a stretch. And so I'm nervous about even making this connection. But because, 2 months ago, Netflix and the Dahmer story and all of the stuff that, again, highlighted Milwaukee. But some of the either criticism or what people didn't like or people liked about what that fictional retelling of that story was gave more background on Jeffrey Dahmer and so many of the things that led to him to be, the monster who did the acts that he did. But it was like parent stuff and stuff as a kid and the things that he was interested in and stuff like that. And so it's like, the attempt to get children help, I feel like, before they become adults. And so it's like, this kid's just going to be locked up forever.
I'm not sure what kind of rehabilitative things are offered in our youth prisons.
Well, it's not, and that's the thing, but I think that this is what I don't understand. And so the difference between adult and juvenile court. Adult court carries much longer terms of confinement than juvenile court, which focuses on rehabilitation and offers more services. And so there's also more privacy protections to children and teens charged in juvenile court and allows the withholding of defendants' names to the public. In adult court, a defendant's identity is made public with the issuing of charges. So this is, I think, because he wouldn't go to, if he gets charged in adult court
and convicted,
he wouldn't go to an adult prison. But he would when he turns either 17 or 18. But I think the charges and how the case is handled is also what changes. And I just don't know the justification for that for a 10-year-old.
What would your alternative be? So if you don't
just keep it in juvenile court. What's the point of charging him as an adult?
To keep him off the streets forever. Because if he's charged in juvenile court, I don't know what maximums or minimums are allowed within juvenile court. But should he only serve 2 years and then be back out when he's 12?
Well, I don't think he would serve only 2 years. I don't know. My mom said that my mom's in town and she said to me, she's like, what are you going to talk about tomorrow? And I told her, she's like, you sure you don't want to wait until someone to be able to talk to someone about this who is more of an expert? And I think this is probably a good topic to be able to talk to with either someone like Jessa Nicholson, who's a criminal defense lawyer, or a prosecutor, because it's certainly something that on its face feels like not, to me, like I said, it doesn't feel like real justice when you think about, no matter how kind of like stone cold on some kind of scale of psychopaths, sociopath, multiple, because I mean, the kid hears voices. That was part of his that he has 5 different people who talk to him. And it just feels like such a travesty.
But again, then we have to sit down and agree what we're going to do about this collectively as a society, because tragically, this child, this 10-year-old, is not the only one who's hearing voices who are telling him things to do terrible things. And we hear the same mantra after every mass shooting: thoughts and prayers, we need to focus on mental health, thoughts and prayers, we need to focus on mental health, and then nothing gets done. And no more, it seems like that's where the discussion ends.
It's just the suggestion of.
Yeah, the suggestion of. And then we wait until the next mass shooting and we say the same things over and over again, and on and on and on and on in this endless cycle.
Well, because what is it with the point? It's like, well, what's a 10-year-old doing with access to a gun? It was in a lockbox. He had the key.
He got the key.
And
for people who think that your kids don't watch you and that you're hiding things from your children, I got news for you.
Yeah.
They know where you hide things.
Well, and they potentially know how to get into them.
Yes.
Well, sorry to start it on such a heavy topic, but it felt important. I don't know. It just stuck out to me as far as not something to just ignore, since we are an outlier as a state of how we handle this.
And you made a real good point. We're gonna follow up on this and look a little deeper into our justice system here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and see who we could talk to maybe talk what would have to happen if we wanted to amend this, and what's the justification for it. Maybe there's something I'm missing. All right, well, we're going to lighten it up when we come back from break. Dr. Mike is going to be here to fix your life and your lineup. If you have any questions you would like to ask the doctor, please let us know. 844-967, which I still don't have it memorized.
2789.
2789. 844-96-PARTY. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Bringing some sanity to the airwaves. The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
WAUK will be broadcasting the Waukesha Christmas Parade live, and you can become a sponsor. Call us at 262-232-8164. Sponsorship includes an on-air interview during the live broadcast of the Christmas Parade. A portion of the proceeds goes directly to the Waukesha Memorial Fund. Please call at 262-232-8164. That's 262-232-8164.
Life had a remote control. You could pause or rewind. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
I love this song! I love nachos.
Loving everything? You might be buzzed.
You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk.
I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks are lower following release of a government report showing a gauge of inflation eased a bit, but is still at a high level. Here's the AP Sagar Magani.
It's called the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, and it shows consumer prices rose 6% in October from a year earlier, down from 6.3% a month earlier, but still elevated. The Federal Reserve closely monitors the index, and the number likely reinforces its intent to keep boosting interest rates as it tries to cool the economy and ease the worst inflation in decades.
We we need to raise interest rates to a level that is sufficiently restrictive to return inflation to 2%.
But Fed Chair Jerome Powell told the Brookings Institution yesterday the central bank could slow the hikes when it meets in 2 weeks. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Major stock indexes are coming off their second straight month of gains. I'm Ed Donahue.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can
Morning,
be
Michael.
complicated, especially if children are.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Jane, what did that person have to say?
Remember Cordell & Cordell.
She didn't want to go on the air, but the law changed, moving 10-year-olds into adult court in 1995.
Okay. But did she say why?
She did not.
Okay.
But loves the show.
Oh, good.
Loves civic media. All excited about the stations all over the state. So that was really nice.
Oh, well, I thought I heard you. It was a positive thing. I was like, oh, let's see. Good morning, Michael. All right. Good to see you. I miss your face. So yeah. So we will start with the career one.
Any one of the three questions you like. I'm good for any of them. Yep.
I haven't even read them yet.
That's fine. So career, dating, and winter blues.
Ooh, let's start with winter blues. Because I feel like, where is that one?
For Civic Media.
Oh yeah,
there with your
just because I
headline.
feel like that
The
is.
Wisconsin
I
Election
even felt it
Commission
the
has
other day. I
agreed
saw
to
something
postpone
funny
a
on
massive
TikTok
data request for statewide voter
that was
registration
like
lists,
singing like a
including
parody
contact
song
information,
about this
until
time
it's
of year,
decided who will be
and
the
it was really
Republican
funny.
chair
So
of the
I'll start
Assembly
with that one, and then
Elections Committee
we'll go to
this
my
month.
fantasy
The
team.
current chair, Representative Janelle Branch,
Okay, we got about
initially
45.
requested
I'm gonna
20
brace
years
now.
of data in January. This is a limited version of that request. The WEC estimates it will cost over $49,000 and take close to 2 weeks to fulfill that request. Branch had expelled from the closed GOP caucus in November after her colleagues said they couldn't trust her. It's unlikely that Assembly Speaker Robin Voss will reappoint her as committee chair. The information will likely still be of interest. A Marquette poll showed that 60% of Republicans surveyed are either not too confident or not confident at all in the results of the 2020 election. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Is your love life a fantasy? Having issues with your fantasy football roster? Helping with football and your love life? Here's your new best friend, Dr. Mike.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. This is Kristen Bry, and I just that intro to this segment every week makes me so happy because it's one, hilarious, I think, at least in my opinion. But it means that my best friend of 15 years, Dr. Michael McCutcheon, who is a psychologist, an executive coach, and he specializes in career achievement and life satisfaction, is here. And he helps us tackle every week. He helps us tackle topics like work and love and fitness and financial goals. But he also helps us make easy, free money on DraftKings and FanDuel by helping us with our fantasy football lineups. Dr. Michael McCutcheon, how you been? It's been like 3 weeks because I was the one who was gone.
That's great. No, I'm so jealous. Your trip looked amazing. But yeah, it's I feel like I haven't seen you on forever. And Jane and I were texting every single day talking about football, and that was great because she's now a convert. So, but that kept me going. And also, Jane, I think for this intro from now on, can I just get 20 minutes of you wearing the light up hat and shirt and skirt, please? Can we do that for just this segment, please?
You got it.
Can you ration a little for me?
Sure, absolute. Next week, I promise you that the scarf for sure.
What I love about this segment is that Michael, in his very busy schedule, always makes the effort to listen to the first segment so he can reference it when he comes on. And so it's just
we have family.
I love listening to you in the morning, and sometimes I even get a break around this time so I can listen to you. No, I love it, and I know we had a heady, serious start to the show today, but I think it's great you're bringing that kind of stuff up. I mean, I think it's to Jane's point about us as a society having to sit down and actually have a conversation about this stuff. I mean, yeah, what an adult idea, Jane. That we all that we have a conversation about stuff as opposed to finger pointing or making everything political. We all have to live with each other in this world, and I think that if we can have some conversations about serious things like this, how do we take care of people who need us most? How do we take care of our young people? It really shows kind of who we are as a society, I think.
Absolutely. And that's a pretty good segue because I think our first question, and again, if you have a question for the doctor, you can text it in, you can call it in, 844-967-2789. But the question that we're going to start with is about how do we take care of ourselves in this time of year? Because seasonal depression is a real thing. I notice even in leaving the 85-degree everyday weather for 2 weeks and coming back to Wisconsin, where it's dark by 5 p.m., it is that time of year. So our first question is, hey, Dr. Mike, I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I always feel a little meh this time of year. The darker days, colder mornings, and stress of the holidays always seem to put me in a month-long funk. I'm not depressed, but I'm tired of feeling like this every year. Can you give me some advice for fighting off the winter blues?
Yeah, I think this gets a lot of people in one way or another. And yeah, the darker skies, the shorter day. Yesterday, I had a really long day. I started working. I had to take some calls from some people in Europe. I started working at 7 a.m. and then I just worked straight through. And I was, I'm done. I'm so excited. And I got done, and it was dark outside. And I was like, I haven't set one foot outside all day, and B, I kind of don't want to now. So yeah, I actually feel your writer here. So I do have some ideas. I have some ideas for most people. Some things that I frankly use myself and that I've tried out through the years. So I've got like a list here for myself that I try to remind myself of, because this time of year, in addition to the weather being different, our lives are really different. You got to go to parties, you got people coming to town, and you've got to entertain, and there's like so many things that like it's just a wacky, wild month, right? So I think it's important to kind of say, okay, I want to stay ahead of the curve. So it's December 1st, so let's do it. There's this great, really affordable light therapy system that you can get. The high end one is called it's by a brand called Carex, and you can get it on Amazon for like $110. And it's great, but they have other ones that are $30, $35 that just sit right here on your desk, or you can have it by your bed in 20 minutes a day in the morning while you're answering emails or brushing your teeth or doing whatever you're going to do. It makes all the difference in the world. So you can get them smaller size for travel if you need to travel for the holidays or whatever. Highly recommend that. That was recommended to me. I didn't do it for years. Now I did it, and I don't know what took me so long. Highly recommend that one. There's a lot of plans you have to do over the holidays. There's a lot of obligations. Right now, December 1st, start making plans that you want to do, right? Figure out the weekend plans. Is there a movie you want to see? Get tickets right now for the weekend. Start seeing people you want to see. There's a lot of people that you have to see, and that maybe you don't want to, right? So, I mean, getting connected to folks that you want to see. And I'll even put this extra caveat on it too. This is not a winter holiday get together with the friends. No, it's the opposite of that. If the holiday stuff is bringing you down and it makes you feel like it always stresses you out, it's an anti-holiday hangout, right? Like do things that are not winter themed or things like that, and let it feel like another time of the year. I know it's hard, especially in places like Wisconsin and Colorado, that it's hard to get outside, but move your body in some way. Even if you can't get outside, do air squats at home. You don't even need weights. Do some planks, do some push-ups, even like maybe I would do them on my knees because I'm weak. And so, do some things like that just to move the body and get the blood flowing a little bit, and like remind yourself that you are in fact alive and have a working body. If you want to get like more medical about it, you can take things like folic acid, vitamin B6 or B12 or vitamin D. 5-HTP is a great supplement. The other two things I'll say before I wrap up is, one is if you feel like it is dipping into something that's more than just meh, and it's really starting to bring you down and work suffering or relationships are suffering, do something to get quick professional help. Kristen and I have a buddy, Sean McBride, who works for Lyra Health. Hit up Lyra Health or hit up BetterUp or TalkFish or something like that. You can usually get somebody in contact with you within the next like 12 to 24 hours. And even if it's just something to get you through the holiday season, that's exactly what they're there for. My final piece of advice is, just like Nancy Reagan used to say in the 80s, just say no. Like if there are things you don't want to do, people you don't want to spend time with, no is your best friend around these times. Just try to get yourself out of all the crap you don't want to do.
Actually, in the point that you just made about BetterHelp or some of the available mental health resources, would you also recommend 988? as far as the mental health hotline?
Definitely. Yeah, 100%. Especially if things like it feels like it's urgent in any way. You know, for somebody like this who feels like I see it coming around December 1st, I know it's around the bend and know I'm going to feel like it might be worth, 15 minutes of your time to go online and just get set up with them so that you have the app and you have somebody who's like ready to go, and you might not need them tomorrow, but you might need them on the 15th when the in-laws come to town or something like that. And then it's already set up and you can just tap right into that. So I would recommend just having those things already on hand.
Because not everyone gets to have their best friend be a PhD psychologist like I do. So
right. I know. Full disclosure, I think I've hit you up for at least the same amount of advice to be
which is really dangerous because I don't have a PhD.
But you have a microphone. So
I do have a microphone. That is true. All right. So moving on to my fantasy football league and my lineup. So I think since we last talked, I think I'm 1-1 or 2-1. I played one week and I thought I was going to win, and then my friend that I was playing that week, she had like 170 points. Like she had two players who had like monster games. There was no chance I was going to win that. So I did get a fantasy football ESPN notification that said one of my benched players is projected to outscore Hayden Hurst.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And so
who's on your bench?
When you get those notifications, should you follow them? Or are they just doing that to like get you to open the app again?
Both. Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely want you to open the app again. But in this case, who is the bench player?
So the bench player is Higbee.
Oh, see, it's so
Higbee
tough.
over Hurst, but it's only like a 0.2% difference.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you don't have to change that one. Also, Higbee has the backup quarterback now because Matt Stafford's out. And so I think you got to play into that and sort of like wonder, is he even going to get the ball? They're just going to run it the whole time because they don't trust this quarterback. So I honestly think that's a bit of a coin toss. You can leave it alone if you want to. You also, if you want to, before it's too late, you might want to see if you can get somebody else tight end that's in the free agent pool. We can try to figure that out in the next couple of days if you want to, or make a trade for something, because both of those tight ends are just okay. Higbee would have been better with Stafford, but now his situation's changed.
So I guess because we're in week 13.
Yep.
And so we're getting to the end, and I was looking at my projections. As of right now, I'm projected to get second in my pool. So that's doing pretty good. So what would your advice be as far as the fantasy football leagues are in their final weeks?
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people as far as what they can still do to salvage and make it into the playoffs?
Double down on stars. This is when people like make their money. Like if you have I think you have Josh Jacobs in your league. Did you see what he did last week? He scored he had 300 yards last week or something, and an all-time. And double down on the stars. So even if you have to, trade a couple of people who are who you normally bench, like you got to trade two or more okay players to get 1 star, go get them now. I mean, this is the time that if the stars are healthy, you can get Christian McCaffrey, if you can get Jalen Hurts, if you can get Patrick Mahomes, if you can get Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill, if you can do something to get one of those players, and it means giving up a bunch of people on the bench. We're not benching anybody, or not benching any of our stars anymore, because there's going to be no buys. That's what the bench is for. It's kind of to protect you against injuries and against the bye week. But we're running out of bye weeks at the end of the year. So just get stars in your lineup and ride with them, and kind of pray that they all stay healthy. But that's the way I would go. I would just go. All the people who have high ceilings, go get them. Forget about value at this point. Just go get stars. So do whatever you got to do. Clear the bench and go get the big name players.
All right. Well, we're talking to Dr. Mike, and this is the segment, Dr. Mike Fixes Your Life and Your Lineup. We are taking your calls and your texts, 844-967-2789. We have a couple minutes before the break, so I think I'm going to read the next question. But if we can't get to the full answer, we can always give the answer when we come back from break. So this is a career question. Hey, Dr. Mike, I'm a 48-year-old guy, and I've been very successful in my career in real estate investing. I have relatives and close friends who have encouraged me to channel what I know about making money in real estate into building a consulting practice. I love this idea. Most advice I get about starting a new consulting gig is to begin with friends as pro bono sample clients to work out the kinks and get testimonials. Even though I know tons of people who'd kill for this valuable free service, my ego won't let me do it. I'm nervous people will think I've lost my mind, or that I'm suddenly poor and trying to make money in a desperate new way. Even though that's not true, I can't bring myself to send out an email to promote my new business idea. Can you help me push my ego aside so I can start an exciting new venture.
That's great. How much do we have? We have 2 minutes, Jane? Yeah, we can do it, Jane. How about remembering that it's been your friends and the people who are close to you that have been recommending this in the first place, right? So I think you probably, with all respect, are underestimating the people who know you and love you, right? So, pardon me, lean into that. And if you don't want to ask them necessarily, ask for like referrals from those people. They think it's such a great idea. Ask them. Say, introduce me to your cousin, your coworker, whoever, right? Also, remember, you're not broke. You know this is not a desperate act. So who cares what other people think? You're nearly a 50-year-old man. Who cares? Drop the ego, and it's time to just like do what you actually want to do with your life. My final piece of advice here is, remember, this is not a request. This is because you sound like you don't need the money, which is fantastic. This is not a request. It's an offering. You're giving somebody advice. It's free. You're making them money. So you want to help people who you love, and help people who are close to you to start off with. That's great. You're not asking for a favor. You're offering something. So if you can remember that, I think and just write up the email, have somebody your partner or somebody press send for you, and just do it. But I think the more you remember that this is something that you're trying to create some goodness in the world, the easier it'll be for you to do it.
Very good advice. All right. Well, we are going to take our first break, but Dr. Mike is still going to be here. When we come back, we will still take any texts or calls that you have for the doctor. 844-967-2789. That is 844-96-PARTY. Stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
But every time she asks me, do I look okay? I'll say, when I see you travel back down that road, will she come back? No one knows. I think that it was only just a dream. Was it easy? Just the way it was only just a dream. When I see you travel back down that road, will she come back? No one knows. I think that I would change. 'Cause nothing easy.
Hi, it's Tom Brown, host of This Week in Waukesha, inviting you to catch our coverage of this year's 2022 Waukesha Christmas Parade, Sunday, December 4th. The coverage starts at 3, the parade starts at 4. We'll be live in front of the Walk Radio studios talking to the marchers, the participants, the fans, and all the people that make this parade in this community a very special place. Waukesha Christmas Parade covered here on Walk Radio 540 AM, 101 FM, The Shaw.
We have to really understand how critically important a time this is. Time for talk is over. The time for action is now. Because my voice has always been and will continue to be for people who don't have a voice.
Tune in to the Earl Ingram Show every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. only on WAUK 540 AM, 101.1 FM, The Shaw.
What grows in the forest? Our imagination and our family bonds. The forest is closer than you think. Find a forest near you at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
It's easy to listen to your favorite local radio station anytime. Download the Civic Media app from the Apple or Google Play Store, then listen live or whenever you want from anywhere for free.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Mainly sunny skies and calm this afternoon with a high of 34. Winds out of the south, 8 to 15 miles an hour. Mainly clear tonight, lows around 27. Overcast skies tomorrow, daytime highs approaching 48. Bright sunshine expected Saturday with daytime highs approaching 26. 37 Sunday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 25 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Muskego to Pewaukee. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
Is your love life a fantasy? Having issues with your fantasy football roster? Helping with football and your love life? Here's your new best friend, Dr. Mike.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bride. This is Dr. Mike Fixes Your Life, and your lineup 844-967-2789. He is here for 8 more minutes, so if you need to get that question in, get it in. We have to start brainstorming because once the season's over, how do we get you on the show each week? Still, is it just Dr. Mike Fixes Your Life, and there is no football aspect of it?
Right. Yeah. I don't have any other talents. So I certainly can't fix your car or your microwave or anything like that. So,
How about cooking, Dr. Mike?
He is a good cook.
Are you?
Yeah. You want me to bring some? We can turn this into a Ina Garten situation. I'm happy to do that. Sounds great. Just,
Dr. Mike cooks up your life and an entree.
Speaking of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Wow.
Well, it was a reference. It was a callback.
Yeah.
But we have to keep, if you have any ideas as far as what else we could turn this segment into, but if also maybe it'll just be a self-improvement life segment for the other weeks of the year until we're back to September.
That's great. We can take people's, if there's anything else in their mind, like when we were talking right before the election, people talking about election stress or whatnot and how to deal with certain things. So maybe there'll be things that aren't just, love, career, and those kinds of things. Maybe we can talk about, how to deal with stresses like, the economy and climate change and things like that, which I've been hearing more and more about in my practice. So we can expand it. Yeah.
We can expand it, and we'll make Brian Kelly make some new fun intro for you. It's still relevant.
That's great.
All right. So we got one more dating question, and then we will go to a little over under. Hey, Dr. Mike, I'm a 32-year-old guy living in a big city, and I recently broke it off with a woman I was dating for about 5 months, and it really crushed her. Although she's nice and pretty, I didn't feel like she added much to my life with regard to expanding my horizons or introducing me to interesting new people. I like her, but I never really felt butterflies per se. It's been about 4 weeks since I ended it, and I'm thinking about reaching back out to her. I haven't dated anyone else since I ended things, but I'm wondering if I'm being too picky and foolishly let a good thing go. What should I do? Should I reach back out and give it another try? My immediate reaction is maybe she doesn't want you, but I will let it go.
That's great.
That's my bias.
We can do that. Maybe that's what we do after the football season. We have dueling advice, right? It's a debate show now. I like that. Short answer is no. Don't reach back out. Not that's the short answer. The longer, more complicated answer is I would say not yet, at least. It's been 4 weeks. Try not to mistake your loneliness for love lost. Right. And it sounds like you remember that it wasn't adding that much to your life. That's okay. A lot of people are nice and kind and pretty and all those sorts of things. But if it's not exactly what you want, honor your wants and your needs, right? You want to meet new people and have your horizons expanded. That's great. Try to find somebody who can maybe do that. So I would spend some time getting back out there. It's just because it's December and cold. Don't reach back out to somebody you just broke up with. And also,
it's cuffing season.
It's cuffing season. Yeah. So go find somebody new to cuff with or a few folks, knock yourself out. But I do think if we want to investigate this in the future, fine. But yeah, get out there, date a couple of other people, let the holiday season go by. And then as Kristen said, if you need to reach out in 6 months or something like that, because you honestly miss her, see if she's willing to have you back. But she sounds like a nice, kind person, and you already crushed her once. Let's not do it again twice in a month.
Boy, and trying to reunite with her right before Christmas, Dr. Mike, doesn't that just imply a lot to do this right before the holidays? You're really setting her up for a big push off the cliff.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, Jane, you're right. That's a firm no now from all three of us. Don't do it, sir. Do not.
Yes, please do not. For everyone's sake, do not do this.
Don't do it. It's fine. There's a lot of people out there for both of you, and hopefully she'll find somebody who appreciates her, and you'll find somebody who checks all those boxes for you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to some free money on FanDuel. All right, we're going to start with over under.
Okay.
Tonight is Thursday Night Football. On FanDuel, Josh Allen, quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, has a betting option set at 1.5 passing touchdowns. Dr. Mike, will Josh throw over or under 1.5 touchdowns tonight versus the New England Patriots?
Hammer the over on this. Hammer it.
Hammer. I know he was very good against the Packers. I remember that. I don't watch a lot of Buffalo Bills otherwise. Like I watch the teams who were playing us. I remember he was very good.
He's good. Yeah, there's not always tons of fireworks on Thursday Night Football as far as scoring is concerned, but he's really good. Their defense is just okay, and yeah, he's going to get at least one to Diggs. He'll get one to somebody else. Yeah, I have all the faith in the world that he'll blow up tonight. So yeah, hammer the over on that. 1.5 seems low, so get it while you can.
All right. Now let's move on to some bets on games using the point spread. This year has been wild with underdogs covering the spread for nearly 60% of the time. With that in mind, if we were to bet on an underdog to cover this week, who would you target?
Wow. Yeah, it's been crazy. So for people who are trying to learn a little bit more about this, what Kristen's referring to is that every week it says, for each game, this team's going to win by this much or that much. And that usually it's almost 50-50 that a team covers because Vegas is very good. So, but this year, the underdogs have been either winning straight out or they've been covering that spread. So the one I would go with, I think, as of right now on FanDuel, or at least this morning when I checked, like the obsessive freak that I am, I saw that the Miami Dolphins are supposed to lose by 3.5 points to the San Francisco 49ers. I would take the Miami Dolphins plus 3.5 points. Their offense is incredible. And I think they can play anywhere. It's not like San Francisco's the frozen tundra or something. I think they're going to be just fine in SF. So I would take the Dolphins with the points to cover. Yep. All
right. And now finally, of course, not that your record on Packers predictions is that great so far this season, but we're going to go for it anyways. All right. Aaron Rodgers has historically owned the Bears. But this has not been exactly the best year for us. So do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to own the Chicago Bears this weekend?
Yeah. First of all, whatever I say to this question, do the opposite.
Yes, exactly. That's what we've learned so far.
Do the opposite. Yeah. I'm fine with all my other things. I think I just have too much faith in Aaron Rodgers. After 15 years, I just have too much faith. Yes, he's going to own the Bears. I think the spread is 5.5. I wouldn't give them 5.5 points, but yes, he's going to win. He's going to do his discount double check. He's going to do it. Yeah.
Even with the tough rib situation. All right.
Yeah, it's going to be an ugly
we'll hold you to that next week when we do this all again, Dr. Mike. All right, this has been Dr. Mike, Fixes Your Life and Your Lineup. He'll be here again next week. So if you have questions next week, you're always free to join the conversation. Thank you, friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Good to see you all. See you next week.
All right, stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
We're gonna grind up your guys into burger meat. Again, of course, we're speaking in the figurative sense. What's the use of even going through the motions when you know that you're gonna lose anyhow? So why don't you save us all some time and give up now? You suck!
You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. And if you missed your favorite show or game, listen to a podcast of it anytime on the app or our website, civicmedia.us.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from...
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha. Always streaming on the Civic Media app.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. At the White House today for meetings with President Biden is French President Emmanuel Macron.
I'm extremely happy and honored to be here for the first state visit of your administration, and this is, for me, the best evidence of this indeed very long-term friendship and partnership.
The two leaders are talking through the war in Ukraine, concerns about China's increasing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific, and European worries over aspects of President Biden's signature climate law.
Things are changing rapidly, really rapidly.
And it's really important we stay in close communication. Doesn't mean that every single solitary thing we agree on, but it does mean we agree on almost everything.
The president will be hosting his first state dinner tonight at the White House. Police in Spain detonated a suspicious parcel discovered at the U.S. Embassy in Madrid the day after a similar package sent to the Ukrainian embassy ignited upon opening and injured an employee. A black charity boss who was repeatedly asked where she really came from by an honorary member of the UK's royal household said she believed institutional racism is a problem all over the UK. Ngozi Fulani detailed the conversation she had with Lady Susan Hussey at a Buckingham Palace reception.
If you ask me a question and I give you the answer, then that's that. Move on to the next question. But if I give you that answer several times and you won't accept it, then let's recognize that there's a problem here.
The exchange led to the resignation of the 83-year-old Hussey as an honorary member of the royal family. Multiple injuries were reported when a school bus crashed into a house and another vehicle in a suburb north of New York City. A group of prosecutors is asking a judge to toss out Democratic Attorney General Josh Kaul's lawsuit challenging Wisconsin's 173-year-old ban on abortions, arguing it lacks legal merit and there is no weight to assertions it is unenforceable because of its age. This is AP News.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
The Devil's Advocates.
Aaron Mostovsky, who rioted at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, was dressed as Captain Caveman. QAnon shaman meets Law and Order?
Right. I mean, he pulled it off a whole lot better than Aaron Mostovsky.
Well, let me read a quote from the judge in this case. I hope you'll leave some of this fantasy world behind. Mostovsky was sentenced to 8 months in prison.
Looking at the guy, he might be one who loses his mattress on the first day. Breaking news.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
This local musical interlude is brought to you by Max Inc. Radio, VO5.
Let's do it on the dance floor. Let's do it how we can. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Listen to Max Inc. Radio every Saturday and Sunday, 6 p.m. to midnight. Download the podcast at maxincradio.com. We are local music.
Hey there, fellow working class heroes. I'm Rick Smith, host of The Rick Smith Show, and we are now on the air in Waukesha, live weeknights 8 to 10 p.m. right here on WAUK 540 AM, 101 FM The Shaw. Turn on, tune in, and help us rebuild the American dream. Check out our website at thericksmithshow.com. The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. Weeknights 8 to 10 p.m. right here on WAUK 540 AM, 101 FM The Shaw.
Self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. Self-monitoring is power. Visit managerbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services.
Did I forget to tag you in the that 90s show trailer? Okay.
For Civic Media, I'm Terry Bell with this news. The January 6th committee is now ready to get to work on its final report after hearing from Wisconsin Assembly Speaker Robin Vos yesterday. Vos's meeting with the committee was the last scheduled deposition in the committee's investigation. In a statement, Vos says he answered the committee's questions about the 2020 election and maintains he was not involved in the attack on the Capitol in 2021. Darrell Brooks Jr. is appealing his convictions for killing 6 people and wounding dozens of others at the Waukesha Christmas Parade last year. Brooks represented himself at his trial, but now he's asking for help from the Public Defender's Office. Waukesha's Christmas Parade is scheduled to return Sunday for the first time since the attack. In sports, the Bucks beat the Knicks last night 109-103. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
Hey, Grandma. Hey, Grandpa. Okay, kids, the basement is all yours.
Lights on, shirts on, and no dancing.
No dancing. You're like the guy from Footloose. No dancing, you guys.
They go in my room. My foot goes in their ass.
You sweet man. I think we should just say, whoa.
Get out.
See you soon.
Get out.
Don't be a stranger.
Get out.
Extra icing.
That was mine.
We never locked the sliding door.
We do now.
Hello, Wisconsin. Yes, yes, yes. That is the new trailer that just dropped this week for That 90s Show, which is the sequel series that's going to be 10 episodes on Netflix. So it is not the same setup, let's say, as That 70s Show was. I think, how many years did that show run? That was a great show.
And spawned the careers of a whole, I mean, Ashton Kutcher and Mila
Kunis.
Yes, and just many, many others. Danny Masterson. Also,
Well, he's It's funny because I was reading more about this, and almost all the people who, you could probably hear, if you were a fan of this show, Red and Kitty, and actually the actor who plays Red, Foreman, is from Wisconsin.
Oh, is he really?
He is. Yeah, I forgot. Oh, what is his? Now I have to try to look up his name. Kurtwood Smith. And I forgot which city from Wisconsin he's from, but he's actually from here. And then Deborah Jo Rupp plays Kitty. How could you ever forget that voice? So the premise of the show is it's still Red and Kitty's house.
Somewhere in
Wisconsin. I forgot what the name of Brooke, do you remember what the name of the made up? And yeah, so it's a made up, I think it's supposed to be in like Southeast Wisconsin in the 70s. So now this is in the 90s. They're now grandparents. And this is Donna and Eric's daughter, who's coming to stay with her grandparents for the summer. And as she gets to town, whatever this Point Place, there we go, Point Place. She gets to Point Place. She now makes new friends that are her age that also live in Point Place. And they have redone the basement. So now, in reading more about this, it's basically if this goes well and as Netflix renews it for another season, it'll be the next summer. Because the guy who is the showrunner for That 90s Show was a writer for That 70s Show, and he said that they found that the most interesting things were not usually when the kids, even though all these actors were definitely in their 20s, were at school. And so that's why they're going to focus it being on the summer and letting the next summer pass. But I want to know, for the audience, especially if you were a teenager in Wisconsin in the 90s, I guess my brother would fall into that. I wonder if he's listening right now. 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. What would the show have to get right to make it feel uniquely Wisconsin in the 90s?
So something cultural.
Cultural, yeah. Because did you watch the show? Did you watch That 70s Show?
No.
But you were a teenager in the 70s.
I was a teenager in the 70s, but by the time that show came out, I was in my 20s, and then, I was in my 30s. I mean, in the 90s, and I was in my 30s.
Yes. But I'm curious of how. You think about, there was Happy Days, which obviously was the 50s, and that was Milwaukee, or, Milwaukee suburbs. Point Place, 70s, Wisconsin. And now this will be 90s, Wisconsin. And obviously there's certain cultural things that were happening across the country that will be referenced. But it's like, what would have to be specific to, for those of us who live in Wisconsin, especially those who were teenagers in Wisconsin, to be like, oh yeah, they really nailed it.
Was that like the Jellies era?
I had some jellies. I for sure I think back at those. I don't know how those were ever popular because they were so uncomfortable. There was like zero support, and they like cut your feet because it was such hard plastic that I remember like as you kind of your feet. Is that like because you didn't wear these shoes in? They wore into you, and like I literally remember having like the blisters. Those things.
Seriously.
It wasn't even blisters because it wasn't rubbing. It was just like hard plastic slicing your skin, and yet we all had them.
And what about weren't bracelets a real big thing?
One thing I certainly
bracelets
know,
or
and this
something?
might be getting more into early 2000s, but there was a lot of white kids who just wore puka shells. There's a lot of white kids in the Midwest that I certainly have pictures of me wearing them. Like a lot of hemp necklaces, randomly. That's certainly, I don't know if that was 90s versus because like I my freshman year of high school was 2000, and so being a teenager in the 90s, I just kind of missed that. So sometimes the trendy things that I remember, it's like, well, was that really 90s or like early aughts?
See, but puka shells started in the 60s.
Oh, really?
And 70s. We wore puka shells in the 70s. And so it only took 20 years later for them to come back. Were Big Bell bottoms ever really come back? Was that a 90s
I had some
thing?
bell bottoms. Yeah.
Were they humongous?
They weren't humongous. They were subtle.
In the I dated a guy once who tripped himself on his pants. Because,
was he okay?
Not anymore. Because the bells on his pants were just so ridiculously huge. This was like 1975.
Okay, 844-967-2789. What was quintessential Wisconsin in the 90s? I'm saying Brett Favre and the Packers.
Big time.
I think that was the last time until recent memory of the Bucks being good. I think the Bucks made it to like the Eastern Conference. I think that was like late 90s. I could be remembering that wrong. Our governor was Tommy Thompson.
For several decades.
For a long time. Trying to think what else was happening in Wisconsin in the 90s.
The football was certainly the overriding. Because again, after decades of the Packers being terrible,
we were finally good.
And people just went crazy. I'm more interested in the fashions. Brooke, were you even alive in the 1990s?
No, I was born in 2000.
But you like that 70s show.
Yeah, my dad watched it a lot, so I watched it with him.
So what did you like about the show?
I just like Donna. I wanted to be her so bad.
All right.
Like I was like, she's so cool.
She was a pretty cool character.
Yeah.
As far as
is that Laura Prepon?
Yeah.
Okay.
As the tall redhead who was, she was a cool character. That was a great show. It will be interesting to see how formulaic this one is, because even in just watching the trailer, obviously they switched. I think it's Kate is the main character instead of Eric. So Kate's the grandchild and Eric's daughter. But if they fill the same archetype. So it's like, is there an Ashton Kutcher, like hot, dumb one, like hot, dumb guy? Is there a Fez foreign exchange student? Is there the hot, bossy, like princess that Mila Kunis played as Jackie? I think Danny Masterton's character was like the cool guy who ended up not being such a cool guy. For anyone who doesn't know the reference, the actor Danny Masterton has some sexual assault charges against him.
Yes.
And so he will not be doing
a recurring role.
He will not be a cameo on the show versus I think almost all of the other Topher Grace, Laura Prepon, Wilmer Valderrama, Ashton Kutcher, and Mila Kunis are all going to make guest appearances on the show.
Wow.
They're not main characters, but they're going to show up at some point in the season, and he's not.
I just find it interesting because they were teenagers during that 70s show, and now it's 20 years later in the 90s. Would Ashton Kutcher's character at that point have a child who is 16 years old?
You mean Eric's?
Yes.
Well, think about because I don't know if they put, because if you were in your late teens, in like the mid to late 70s, 20 years later, like I don't think if you have a kid in your early 20s.
I guess.
Right?
Yeah, I guess. Because I just am having a hard time because Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis have 2 children, but they're both, I think they're under 10.
Well, it's also people, I will be almost by the time I have a 10-year-old, knock on wood, I'll be in my late 40s.
That's true.
You know what I mean? That's also
true.
just decisions to life decisions of when you're going to have children. But I think reasonably, had I had a child, there's no reason I couldn't have a 16-year-old right now had I gotten pregnant at 20.
Right.
So I don't know.
It's not like anyone is going to care when they watch
No.
the show.
I mean, I think it's like the suspension of belief of you're like, well, the show's back. So I don't know. Like I just tried to think of, sometimes when we do these Wisconsin in the Wild segments of the representation of Wisconsin and how much they get right versus how much they get wrong. And so that's why I thought it'd be fun if we kind of brainstorm and like, what would they have to include for it to be in Wisconsin versus just a 90s show that could be in anywhere.
Again, it's got to be sports centric. It's got to be football centric, because it was all about Favre and the Packers. Once he stopped throwing interceptions. Actually, he never stopped throwing interceptions. So forget I said that.
That's so funny. So, like I said, my brother and my mom are in town for the night, and my husband Michael is very into sports cards. And my brother lamented that he couldn't. He had at one point a Brett Favre rookie card.
Wow!
And then we all joked, we're like, "Well, I wonder if it's lost some of its value."
A little of the glow. Maybe
It'd be interesting to see the market chart on that piece.
Yeah.
If it's still, despite the multiple controversies, but at least the latest controversy, if then is not quite as valuable as it once was.
You mean taking money from charities that was intended for poor people and using it for speeches in a volleyball court?
Not a great thing to do.
That was naughty.
I think he's trying to get out of the lawsuit, though. I think he's trying to, he's made some kind of request that his name get dropped from the investigation / lawsuit. I think that was the last headline I saw on this. And it's
unreal. It's just unreal.
I didn't do anything wrong. Well,
I knew about it, but it wasn't. Does that make it wrong?
Anyways, all right. Well, we still want to hear from you, especially if you lived, I guess even if you weren't a teenager in the 90s. But what do you remember about Wisconsin in the 90s that this show, that 90s show should or would need to include in order to really nail the show? I wonder how many people, I guess besides the actor who plays Red, I wonder how many other people work on the show who are from Wisconsin.
They did it pretty well
the first time around.
So
I know.
You got
I'm going to watch it. Are you going to watch it? Would you watch this one?
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
Brooke, would you watch this one?
I think, yeah. Definitely.
All right. Definitely?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to watch it. If for no other reason than to create more content for this show.
Things to steal.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break, but let us know what was Wisconsin like in the 90s? 844-967-2789. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The Downtown Waukesha Christmas Parade is Sunday, December 4th.
If we don't get any texts or calls, I feel like we kind of milked it.
Let's move on.
So I don't know what should we move on to. This was like my one segment where I was like,
what about headlines?
Just go through.
Let's just kick those around.
What's going on?
Yeah.
All right. I'll just go to the. I'll go to. You think Wisconsin headlines or national headlines?
Authentic Italian
either or.
All
right.
Sports bar.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house.
Things that are happening.
Companies used to pay programmers.
Ooh, we'll do a
big to
fact
get
check.
online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page or Squarespace.
I got something.
Or Google My Business or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path?
I got Hamilton, What I Miss in the Rack. So is that going to work?
The right way.
Sure.
Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Finish your high school diploma for you and your family. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast at civicmedia.us or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Mainly sunny skies and calm this afternoon with a high of 34. Winds out of the south, 8 to 15 miles an hour. Mainly clear tonight, lows around 27. Overcast skies tomorrow, daytime highs approaching 48. Bright sunshine expected Saturday with daytime highs approaching 26. 37 Sunday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 28 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
So what did I miss? What did I miss? Virginia, my home, sweet home, I wanna give you a kiss. I've been in Paris meeting lots of different ladies. I guess I basically missed the late 80s. I traveled the wide, wide world and came back to this.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry and Jane Metnair.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Nice sunshine day.
It is a nice sunshine day, but it's also it's funny how quickly you just get back into the motion of life. It's like, this is only the fourth day I've been back since I've been not being back for two weeks. And it just feels like, we're back in it.
And it feels like you never went anywhere, doesn't it? Already or not quite yet?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, the only thing that's just reminding me, I feel like, because it's certainly getting back into the immediate, I don't want to call it a grind, because I am very lucky to enjoy my work, both what I do here, the videos I do at Journal Sentinel, all the people I work with, but it is a lot of work. And the way my mind works is there's always more to do, even if no one's asking me to do it. And so how quickly you get back into the...
Is it the pace?
The pace. That's a good word, because I don't want to say the stress of it all, but the pace and the to-do list and the I got to do this when I get home, or I got to do this weekend, and the rest and relaxation you accumulated melts away. But my tan is still here.
It is. You got to pull on those reserves. There's still a few vacation reserves you're going to be able to tap yet, I think.
Yeah. And so, but it's been fun to get back into the swing of things of picking stuff out for the show. And one of the things I feel like, not that this would be reinventing the wheel whatsoever, but sometimes we pick stories and I feel like I need to have a strong point of view on them. But then sometimes there's just good stories to know, and just the headlines of things you might have missed, things that, at least in my opinion, stories you should know about. And so I think one of the things we might start trying to bake in is just like, what are the headlines? We got to think of a fun name for it, though, because things you should know feels a little too on the nose.
Yeah, that's not very sexy.
Like you can't follow up. Can't follow up. Dr. Mike fixes your life and your lineup with things you should know.
How about sexy things you should know?
Sexy things you should know. That sounds a little leading. People might be disappointed when they find out what the headlines are.
It might be a lie, but it might get them here.
It might get sexy things you should know today.
Yes.
10 things. That sounds like a Cosmopolitan.
It does.
10 things to please your man.
10 sexy things you should know.
And so trying to accumulate a list of, stuff that happened, and you should know that it happened. But one of the things I just pulled up, what I always love is the good. We were doing this a lot before the election, which is PolitiFact, fact-checking things. And just because the election's over doesn't mean that PolitiFact isn't still fact-checking things. And one fact check that just popped up as I was like, what are the headlines? Fresh off his, I think he actually said this before he did his January 6th testimony. But Speaker Robin Vos, I guess, recently said in a November 22nd, 2022 public statement, quote, "A lot of programs that were started during the pandemic are still going, even though the pandemic is long over," end quote.
It is.
Well, what do you think PolitiFact rated that?
I would say mostly false.
Ooh, ding, 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 ding. Yeah, Vos is mostly wrong on claim that pandemic unemployment payments are keeping Wisconsinites from working. basically for the most part, pandemic era unemployment programs stopped paying out in 2021. Some people are still receiving pandemic unemployment payments, but those are for claims made during the time the program was open that were held up due to various issues. Because if people remember, it was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. And unfortunately, we can blame our state legislature for not updating those computer systems before this whole thing happened, which helped create that train wreck of people waiting months and months and months to get this money.
And it's also, and I'm sure there's people who, because I remember I was trying to do a story video back in 2020 about this, because I had people contacting me even at that point with how there was Facebook groups. I mean, because people were losing their houses, they were getting evicted on money that they were owed. But I started talking to I had a conversation with a employment lawyer who's in Madison. I think it's Victor Garber.
That sounds about right.
Well, you know what I'm talking about,
I do.
right? Mm-hmm. And we had a conversation, and he talked about kind of the historical context of not just the outdated computer system, but also the shift that happened in that entire department during the Walker era. And that really the ethos of, if you get trained to work and to process unemployment claims, that the entire kind of attitude is to treat people as they're trying to fraud the system until they prove otherwise.
Oh, so you're a cheater until you prove you're not a cheater. Or just another lazy Wisconsinite.
Yes. And that it is much more in the fabric of how the department is run, of what, it was one at such a massive scale of people filing claims, and the cumbersomeness of the actual process and the arbitrary reasons people would get kicked out of the process and have to start over and appeal and all of these things. But a lot of it, the man-made people side of it, that it's not just the technology or lack thereof, was to treat people that they're trying to cheat the system. And I'm sure that there are people who tried to cheat the system.
And a lot of them got caught.
A lot of them got caught.
And these were some big time players who got caught.
Which ones are you referencing?
Well, there were several. I mean, there was the one guy in Florida who got caught with buying Lamborghinis.
Oh, I thought you meant in Wisconsin.
No, but I mean, there was certainly fraud. But I think that happened on a much different scale than people just trying to collect unemployment.
Yeah. And I mean, and a reminder to everyone that unemployment in Wisconsin is very, very low right now. We're actually at historic lows, not only just for the unemployment rate, but also for the number of people who are collecting unemployment right now. I remember looking into that when Tim Michaels made the claim of how many lazy Wisconsinites that the pandemic created, which is just not true.
No, it's not true.
All right. Well, when we come back, record year for referenda. Ari Brown from Wisconsin Policy Forum is going to be here to talk about some of the other analysis that came out of the election that has nothing to do with partisanship. All right, stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Something to say. I'm already on my way to get to the bottom of this.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk station.
Missed your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And we're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app.
This local musical interlude is brought to you by Max Inc. Radio. Kelsey Miles.
Let the music roll. Hit it.
Listen to Max Inc. Radio every Saturday and Sunday, 6 p.m. to midnight. Download the podcast at maxincradio.com. We are local music.
What is dedication?
People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike and you didn't? I just created an environment where they taught themselves and all I had to do was be there.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department.
I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. President Biden has been meeting at the White House with French President Emmanuel Macron.
France is one of our strongest partners and historically, but one of our strongest partners and our most capable allies.
The two presidents talked about the war in Ukraine.
Putin thinks that he can crush the will of all those who oppose his imperial ambitions. But attacking civilian infrastructures in Ukraine, choking off energy to Europe to drive up prices, exacerbating the food crisis, that's hurting very vulnerable people, not just in Ukraine, but around the world. And he's not going to succeed.
Macron acknowledged the challenging times in Ukraine and called on the two nations to better synchronize actions on climate change. President Biden is honoring Macron with the first state dinner of his presidency.
Hello, sir. How
tonight.
are you?
I'm Ed Donahue.
How are you?
I'm good. Well, I think this will be fun. So I think kind of what I said in the email, we'll start with, the referenda, and then we can kind of say like the different categories of the stuff that was binding versus the non-binding stuff, but then we're just focusing mostly on the stuff that actually was binding, and to go through the categories and what this means, and then maybe at the end, either at the end or probably when we come back after break, we'll joke about the ATVs.
The ATV, UTV stuff. Yeah.
How many of those passed?
I'm pretty sure like all of the ones that we knew the results for did pass. I think if not all of them, then most.
Yeah, this is so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll just roll with it.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, I'm sure she'll play the data song.
I'm so excited.
Dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dinovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dinovite.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Madnair with your headlines. A new report from the Wisconsin Policy Forum found that total debt owed by the state's cities, counties, villages, and towns rose by 5.4% to $11.04 billion in 2020, the highest amount recorded. Milwaukee, Madison, and Kenosha holding the most debt, but Wisconsin towns have seen the fastest growth in borrowing since 2015. On Wednesday, the Wisconsin Elections Commission certified the results of the November midterm elections with no fanfare. Despite false claims in the past of security over Wisconsin's elections, the election ran smoothly. WEC Chair Don Mills, a Republican appointed by Assembly Speaker Robin Voss, certified the results and stated gratitude to clerks across the state for a job well done. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK, 540 AM.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. It is the lunch hour. Thank you for joining us in Waukesha, Oshkosh, Rapids, Amory, Madison tonight, or, Wausau on the podcast, wherever you're listening to us right now. And that song signals that it's time for Summarizing Wisconsin Policy Forum Reports, because only nerds read Wisconsin Policy Forum Reports. And today we are joined by Ari Brown, who is a senior research associate with Wisconsin Policy Forum, whose work for the forum revolves around issues of local government, finance, and data visualization. And today we're going to talk about what this, the nerd stuff that I always love talking about, which is the thing that isn't talked about enough. And I think in the aftermath analysis that happened of the election last month, because it is December, so now we can say last month, the red wave that wasn't, the partisanship of the split ticket voters between Evers and Ron Johnson, and kind of a lot of the more partisan analysis of why what happened. But what also happened was a record year of voters approving to spend more money. And that is what you did a report on. So we're going to talk about that. Ari Brown, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back. And I feel like I have a little theme song now with
I know. Have you watched, side tangent before we get started, have I sent you the actual music video for that song?
No, please do, because I'm sure
I need to send it to you. It's hilarious. Yeah. It's people doing their spreadsheets and all the different, I'm sure all the different software that you guys use to do the analysis that you do. And it's a genius parody song.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I'd love to watch it.
So I guess let's get started. And so what we're kind of lay the framework. So we talked a lot about how in Wisconsin, when it comes to changing state law, there was plenty of non-binding / advisory referenda on people's ballots. Here in Waukesha, there's one on changing election resources. There was stuff on weed. There was stuff on abortion. But, I got questions from people like, what does this actually mean? I was like, well, whether you should vote how you want to vote on it, because it's a popularity. It shows how much people are in favor of this, but it doesn't change anything. The things that does, the referenda that were on people's ballots, it does change was all the funding stuff. And there were some others that we're going to get to as well. But that, I think, is the crux of what your report was on, right?
Yeah. So essentially, Wisconsin, like a lot of other states, does not have a state level binding referendum process. So we can't generally change unless it's like a constitutional amendment. There are not things that voters can do to really change laws at the state level. What we have instead is at the local level, there are both non-binding referenda that you mentioned for things like, we saw a lot for marijuana. We saw a lot for clean water. There was a question that asked about the right to clean water. And these are more just kind of polling survey type stuff for, municipal local leaders to see where their citizens stand on certain issues. But you're right. The other kind of referendum that we have is binding referenda that are generally used for a couple different things. Some of them are specifically delineated in the state statutes to say, in the state statutes, you're allowed to have voters vote on this specific thing, this very specific question that they can either say yes or no to, and then a very specific type of law changes. The other kind we have is funding referenda. The way that we've seen these primarily used over the last couple decades is mostly for school districts, where you have either operating or debt/capital referenda. The operating referenda would be to raise property taxes to fund ongoing operations, whereas the debt referenda would be for a specific project, usually something having to do with a new building or building renovations, things like that. What we saw a lot more of this year, though, and that we focus on quite a bit in this piece, is we saw a lot more of those same types of funding referenda happening in other local governments, so specifically municipalities, towns, and counties that have been voting to essentially voters choosing to raise their own property taxes to fund primarily what we saw this year was public safety, so fire and EMS and police.
And that, because I think we talked a fair amount about the school referenda, but that was the part that I think was interesting to me as we talk about the buzzwords of defunding police and crime and stuff like that, of how many local governments at different levels were like, we need more money to pay for our services beyond schools. And so did those overwhelmingly pass? We'll still, because there's basically a couple of different categories. There's what you just said as far as municipality like services, and then we'll get to school districts and the funding, how those fared. But of the ones that were specifically about services and police and emergency services, did most of those pass?
Yeah, so there were, of those municipal, town, and county funding referenda, there were 23 on the ballot in the fall, and 18 of them passed. So really high rate of success. In general, 21 of those 23, I believe, asked about specifically public safety, so either mentioned fire, EMS, or police. And obviously the overwhelming majority of the ones that passed authorized more funding for those items. We talk a little bit in the piece about some of kind of the challenges around local funding right now. One of the things that you've been seeing over the last decade or so is that we have strict property tax levy limits. So the amount that municipalities can raise their property tax each year is at this thing called the rate of net new construction, essentially all new property created in a boundary divided by the total property value. That has lagged inflation for a little while. Shared revenue from the state has not really increased at all in the last decade either. So there's kind of an ongoing funding challenge. And then for public safety measures, you have kind of an added element here of when you had Act 10 pass in 2011, that removed a lot of collective bargaining items from most public sector employment categories, except for fire and police. And generally what we've seen is that you have unions for fire and police that are able to negotiate, regular salary increases, regular benefit increases, things like that, which just kind of carries with it higher budgetary demands, which is probably why we're seeing a lot of these things kind of specified in these local referenda. And then the other item here is that obviously fire and police just account for quite a bit of the spending that happens at the local level.
And so it was interesting because in this report, you again, you should read if you don't, just between the referenda for public safety, but then also coupled with a referenda for schools, which also passed overwhelmingly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So over the course of 2022 in its entirety, 80.1% of school district referenda passed. I believe the number was slightly lower, maybe in the high 70s just in the fall elections, but over the entire course of the year, it was more than 4 out of every 5. This is now the third straight general or midterm election year where school district referenda have been passed at a rate of at least 80%. So that was not really something that you saw much prior to the last couple of big election cycles. And we're also seeing that coupled with a higher number of referenda on ballots to start with. So we didn't have a record number of school district referenda that passed this year. There were more that were passed in 2018. There were 140 in that year, 133 this year, but still some of the highest numbers that we've seen across the 21st century. And specifically, one of the things that we call out in this report is there were more operating referenda that were passed in this year than any other year since at least 2000. So that's something that I think we're paying attention to as well.
We're talking to Ari Brown, who is a senior research associate with the Wisconsin Policy Forum, and we're talking about referenda and how much, not only the number of referenda that passed, but also the dollar amount that has now been approved. So what is that, you have it offhand, the dollar amount that is now going to be raised between amongst the towns, cities, counties that voters voted on that they are willing to see their property taxes increased?
Yep. So in the fall, voters authorized an additional $11.4 million in municipal and county property taxes. Over the course of the entire year, it was about $23.8 million. If you look at those municipal, town, and county referenda going back to kind of when they started, when levy limits were put in place, when you started to see this type of ballot question, and you add up all of the referenda from that first year, 2006, until last year, you had only a couple $1 million more in all of those years combined than you did in 2022. So really this year was that, when we talk about a record year for referenda, I think where our head went first was the municipal, town, and county referenda.
So bear with me on this, because my takeaway as a layperson when I see this is, on the one hand, we have now a $6 billion surplus. Is that what it's up to now?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
We have the stories coming out as far as GOP leadership in the state legislature saying they want more tax reform, more tax cuts. And then you juxtapose, thank you, that with how many voters just voted to increase their taxes to pay for this stuff. Is it a leap to say that voters are willing to pay more taxes in order for services to get funded, and that maybe it's a little tone deaf to say that we need more tax cuts?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be careful.
I know you have to be more careful. I'm the one who gets to have an opinion.
Yeah, but I mean, we do talk in the end of this piece about we reference another report that we did a little while back called The Golden Opportunity, which talked about the state surplus. When you say $6 billion, that is $6 billion that the state has, I believe, just in its general fund to be spent on things if need be. The state can also kind of hold it as reserves. And one of the things that we talked about in that report is the state has not had these kind of reserves really in the 21st century, nothing really on the scale of this. A lot of it has to do with, taxes coming in at higher levels than were projected, spending, demands not necessarily taking away from that pot that is growing and growing over time. And we do kind of talk a little bit in the end of the piece about this interesting kind of juxtaposition where you have local governments that are continually and more so going to their voters and saying, we need more for this specific thing. And as we saw this year, with a very high rate of approval for municipal, town, and county referenda with, again, high rates for school district referenda. Voters seem fairly willing to approve referenda right now. And that is juxtaposed with the state having a higher level of reserves. Some of the other, right, you could obviously, that begs the question, could the state use some of that revenue to alleviate some of those concerns that local governments have? I think some of the other things that we talk about at the end of this piece that have also kind of been in the general discussion around this kind of state-local relationship and local government financing, some of the questions that we've seen. We talk about local sales taxes. I know Milwaukee specifically is kind of where this is being discussed. There are no municipal level sales taxes in Wisconsin. We have a 0.5% optional county sales tax that almost every county now has instituted. And then we have the state sales tax, but that's obviously revenue that goes back to the state. Milwaukee has been talking about potentially seeing if they could get some sort of sales tax that would bring in more revenue and potentially alleviate some of those concerns, but that hasn't really been a huge statewide discussion yet. The other thing that we talk about that the forum writes about quite a bit is sharing services across like many municipal governments. We did a report very recently on the 7 North Shore Milwaukee communities, potentially looking at sharing their police department, kind of combining that into one big police department like they did with their fire department. So there are other options here, but I think one of the things that you will see around the conversation of referenda quite frequently is this kind of interesting juxtaposition where the state has growing reserves that are quite large and local governments that are having to go to their citizens and say, we want this specific thing. Can you raise your own property taxes?
And we're going to take a break, but one of the things that I think is interesting that's pointed out in the article is on the one hand, I think there's an argument of, well, it's a direct, we know where our taxes are going. And there's something appealing in that. And when you're voting on a specific referenda, but then there also is the fact that a place like Middleton, which passed a lot compared to cities that are not as growing, are not as populated, that are struggling. And is it fair to just have it be city by city? So we're going to talk more, but dive into that a little bit more when we come from the break. Our guest this half hour is Ari Brown, who's a senior research associate with Wisconsin Policy Forum. Stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
We're up all night for this poster. Oh, how I hate Illustrator. Why can I not move this figure? Hope no one scoops my next paper. We're up all night to get data. We're up all night to get data. We're up all night to get data. We're up all night to get data.
The Downtown Waukesha Christmas Parade is Sunday, December 4th, and WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM is proud to cover all the festivities. Parade coverage starts at 3 p.m. The coverage is brought to you by Mia's Kitchen and Pizzeria, delicious, fresh, home-style Italian, and Planned Parenthood. Care no matter what. Affordable health care without judgment. Book your appointment today at ppwi.org. And Albanese's Roadhouse, authentic Italian family restaurant, sports bar and grill.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show or game, find it wherever you get your podcasts or on our website, civicmedia.us.
27% of the American workforce, and some even say 30%, were in unions who had representation and who clearly did not have to worry about whether or not they were going to get their fair share. But I'm definitely going to fight for people who get the short end of the stick in this society only because they don't have representation. That's who I am.
Check out the Earl Ingram Show every day from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. only on WAUK 540 AM 101 FM, The Shaw.
It's easy to listen to your favorite local radio station anytime. Download the Civic Media app from the Apple or Google Play Store, then listen live or whenever you want from anywhere for free.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Daytime highs approaching 34 this afternoon under clear skies, southerly winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Mainly clear tonight, lows level off around 27, highs level off around 47. Tomorrow, cloudy skies. Turning cooler Saturday and Sunday with highs from the mid-20s to the upper 30s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 28 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Big Bend to Menominee Falls. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. Our guest this half hour is Ari Brown, who's a senior research associate at the Wisconsin Policy Forum. And we are talking about the record number of referenda that was passed, both in quantity and in quantity of dollars, and kind of the juxtaposition that creates between the surplus that we have and what to do with that extra money, while people are also actively voting to say we are willing to pay more in property taxes to get certain things funded. And so what I thought was interesting at the end of the report that you guys produced is talking about a place like Middleton, that it was millions of new spending for their local school district. And it was like over $700,000 per year more for police and parks and priorities. But I grew up in Madison. Middleton's kind of, it's right next door, and it's been growing even since I left Madison. And it's a very different community that has more money, more population, more job opportunities and stuff, compared to rural Wisconsin, other towns that do not have that kind of growth. And so I understand the argument on one side of when you don't want your tax, but not knowing where your tax money goes. And so something like this feels very direct. But can you talk a little bit more about how this creates inequality or discrepancies between different towns and municipalities in Wisconsin?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the other big reasons that we're focused on this issue. When you start to have this question of, going to the residents of a community and saying, we want this specific thing, there are going to be places where that's easier to do and places where that's more difficult to do. When you have a very property wealthy community like Middleton, or frankly, like a lot of the suburbs of Madison, we have a map in this report that kind of shows you where a lot of the operating referenda for school districts took place. And you can see kind of a huge bunch of what's happening around the Madison area. You're going to, see voters in those places that are more willing to raise their property taxes because they have the financial ability to do so. And when you see something on the ballot that says, we want to raise this specific amount of new property taxes to fund, an extra position in our police department, or, purchase an extra fire engine, or, make sure that we have a new school building that is functional and can open up and house a bunch of new students. You're more likely to see that pass in a wealthy community that has the ability to do that. And I think one of the things that you'll see, even on this map that we have in our report, is that there are large swaths of the state that don't necessarily, have the wherewithal, or just, aren't on that kind of referendum process like a lot of suburban communities are, that are not passing these referenda. And when you're making the decision at the local level rather than the state level to fund things equally. We have things like the state, the funding formula for school districts. We have shared revenue, which has some equalization built into that formula. One of the things that we use to distribute revenue to school districts is like equalization aid is like the official name for it. We have all of these things at the state level that kind of equalize things and take into consideration, the ability to pay for certain things. When you start to do things at the local level, you are going beyond those equations and just kind of leaving it up to voters. And I think that's one thing that we are definitely going to be paying attention to going forward, because there's certainly the potential for it to start to create some of those disparities. I don't think at the level of the municipal and county and town referenda, you've had enough of them to really see that play out yet. And I think school district referenda are so pervasive right now that there's not really a lot of communities that haven't passed a referendum in even the last 5 years. I believe it's something like 67% of all school districts have passed at least one referendum in the last 5 years. So those disparities might not be emerging quite yet, but it's definitely something to pay attention to going forward.
And Yeah, this is also. I mean, again, this is why this is why the segment's called "Summarizing Wisconsin Policy Forum Report," because only nerds read Wisconsin Policy Forum reports. But I am a nerd, and I find this stuff so interesting because it matters, right? And it's something that I don't think is always communicated to people who, all they hear is "I don't want my taxes raised," and don't understand what services may disappear because ultimately, to get these things, there needs to be a budget for it. Whether it comes at the local level of property taxes or income taxes or sales taxes or some point, it needs to be funded. Jane, did you have a question?
I wonder, Ari, and I know this is completely speculative, but it just seems to me like with all of these communities taking it upon themselves to increase their own taxes, this just gives the state legislature more reason to say, yep, we're just going to keep sitting on our big pile of money because they're going to take care of themselves and we don't have to look like the bad guys.
I think it's going to be something interesting to look at going forward. I mean, there's certainly the potential for that. And it seems like we haven't necessarily hit a ceiling with these yet, especially when it comes to the municipal town and county funding referenda. I mean, this is the second year where those have been a thing where we had even more than 10 of them pass. But really the first year where they've kind of been passed on a pretty wide scale. So I do think that'll be interesting to see going forward is what kind of decisions the legislature and Governor Evers make based off of what they saw happen with referenda this year.
Well, so then with the couple minutes we have left, I do have to ask about the outcome of some of the referenda that was binding and very Wisconsin.
Yes.
How did all those ATV and UTV referenda fare? Are we seeing a lot more of them on the roads when you go up north?
Yeah, so this is a question that I wasn't really aware of this previously, but we kind of wanted to look at like the wide swath of like all referenda. And there are a lot of referenda for like very specific things, but things that you might not think about. So one that we saw a lot this year was this question of essentially should ATV and UTV like vehicles be allowed on local roads. Interestingly, a lot of these were in the southern part of the state. Kind of in the like Beloit, Janesville kind of area. There were a couple in the northern part of the state, but what we saw, I think in general, we don't have full results, but a large majority of these look like they passed. So that's
all right.
But yeah, lots of interesting stuff there.
Jane, we got to get you your ATV. Dangerly, Jane's back.
Free the wheel. Free the wheel.
All right. Well, this is super interesting. And certainly it'll be even more interesting to see if this trend continues, because I'm sure there'll be more referenda on the spring ballot come April. And so if this is more data to look at, because you stay up all night to get data, Ari. All right, Ari Brown, thank you so much for spending time with us. We will definitely have you back with the next report.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Love being here.
Absolutely. All right, have a great day. All right, when we come back, it is National Christmas Light Day. I actually see in Ari's background, his Christmas lights are up. Are your Christmas lights up? What is the quintessential, what do you have, what Christmas lights in your town are the best? We want to know. Take your calls, 844-967-2789. I know here it's Candy Cane Lane. Can't wait to see that. All right, stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Downtown Waukesha Christmas Parade is Sunday, December 4th, and WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM is proud to cover all the festivities. Parade coverage starts at 3 p.m. This coverage is brought to you by Waukesha Auto Repair. When your car breaks down, don't get mad, go to war. Waukesha Auto Repair, locally owned and operated, 262-524-0000, and fully promoted. 18 years of promotional service. Whatever you want, we can get it. And Buddy's Burgers and Custard. Best burgers and custard in Waukesha. WAUK will be broadcasting the Waukesha Christmas Parade live, and you can become a sponsor. Call us at 262-232-8164. Sponsorship includes an on-air interview during the live broadcast of the Christmas Parade. A portion of the proceeds goes directly to the Waukesha Memorial Fund. Please call at 262-232-8164. That's 262-232-8164.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha, always streaming on the Civic Media app.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. President Biden says there's a lot to talk about with French President Emmanuel Macron.
If I listed all the areas where cooperation between France and the United States were delivering meaningful progress, we'd be here until dinner time.
At the White House, the two presidents talked about the war in Ukraine, the economy, and climate change. Through an interpreter, Macron pointed out the change in administrations.
The fact that you're back on major international challenges such as health and climate, it is really a new deal. And we've been resisting for a number of years, and now we're being able to re-engage with you.
The president also acknowledged glitches in his clean energy law and says there are tweaks they can make to satisfy unhappy allies. Russian shelling cut off power in much of the recently liberated Ukrainian city of Kherson, just days after it was restored, amid Moscow's ongoing drive to destroy key civilian infrastructure as freezing weather sets in. Word of anti-lockdown protest in China spread on domestic social media for a short period last weekend, thanks to a rare pause in the cat and mouse game that goes on between millions of Chinese internet users and the country's censorship machine. Chinese authorities maintain a tight grip on the country's internet via a complex, multi-layered censorship program. The Commerce Department reports consumer prices rose 6% in October from a year earlier. The AP's Sagar Magani has more on what this means for the economy.
The Federal Reserve closely monitors the index, and the number likely reinforces its intent to keep boosting interest rates as it tries to cool the economy and ease the worst inflation in decades.
Stocks are lower on Wall Street. Multiple injuries have been reported after a school bus crashed into a house in Rockland County, north of New York City. News reports say several children and the bus driver were taken to hospitals for treatment. This is AP News.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. And if you missed your favorite show or game, listen to a podcast of it anytime on the app or our website, civicmedia.us.
The Devil's Advocates.
Mitch McConnell did make a public statement, right? After he voted to acquit, no, nothing says the president can't be prosecuted. Set the example for your caucus.
Convince your caucus as to why the man is not fit to serve. How do you not use your leadership to say, you guys, this is crazy. We can't do this, and here is exactly why. Because now of the two major political parties, one of them is under the thumb of a fascist insurrectionist.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
If a natural disaster comes knocking, how prepared is your family? You can't just close the door on earthquakes, floods, or hurricanes and hope they go away. That's why it's important to make a plan now. Ready.gov/plan has the tools and tips you need to prepare your family for an emergency. So if disaster shows up at your doorstep, you'll be ready. Visit ready.gov/plan and make a plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
For Civic Media, I'm Terry Bell with this news. A 10-year-old boy in Milwaukee is charged with homicide as an adult after admitting he killed his mother in November. He first told police it was an accident, but investigators did some more digging after relatives said they found his lack of remorse strange. Police say they found out he went online the next day and bought a virtual reality headset his mother wouldn't let him have. Senator Ron Johnson is calling for a vote to end the military's COVID-19 vaccination requirement. Several Republicans are warning they'll drag out Senate consideration of a massive annual military policy bill unless they get a vote. Johnson says the armed forces are discharging too many men and women because they don't want to get the shot. In sports, the Bucks beat the Knicks last night 109-103. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
It's that time. Christmas time is here.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. We are in our final hour. Thank you for listening. Wherever you are, in any of the states, in any of the cities that we air in, all across the Civic Media Network, on the app, on the podcast, we're happy that you're here. It's December.
It is.
This year has gone by really quickly.
Well, you had a whole bunch of things going on this year.
I did. But yes, this year was very fast. Lots of things happened. The holidays are here, which is very exciting. It is the happiest time of the year, some would say. Maybe not everyone agrees with that, but I will say one thing that makes me very happy is Christmas lights.
I agree.
And it's one of those, I think when I started the week and I said one of the things I learned on vacation is variation is important, because I do catch myself on, as soon as the Christmas lights go up around any city, everything just looks prettier. And there's always a part of me that says, well, why can't we just have these up all year round? Not necessarily the distinctive, Santa Claus is everywhere.
And
but
the red and green and all that
yeah,
stuff.
but like the pretty white lights. And it's like, well, maybe if they were up all year round, I wouldn't appreciate them as much. But right now, for this month, driving by the lights, driving by the decorations makes me very happy.
I agree with you. And I suggested years ago that when we take down our lights, perhaps in March, wouldn't it be nice to have some light up daffodils or something, or light up tulips,
Yeah,
some light
change
up
it up.
early flowers of spring, you kind of get that going, because it does seem really dull when everybody turns them all off, and then we have to wade through February and March.
And especially in this state, because the worst months of winter are basically once all the Christmas lights are gone. And so it's just like brown, sludgy snow. Yeah. It's still 5 degrees outside. Everyone just wants spring to come. And we don't have any decorations to at least bring a smile to our face. But
that'll be our side hustle, Kristen.
Exactly. So, we love a good national holiday, national observance. And there is plenty today. One of which is it's National Christmas Lights Day. So we want to hear from you on what are the must not miss Christmas light display, holiday display, spectacles in your part of Wisconsin.
And it might just be a particular house that really goes
totally
all out.
One house that you love, one park that really goes out, does it big. We want to hear where is what in your town is just lights up, excuse the pun, for the holidays, 844-967-2789. But it's also National Peppermint Bark Day.
Who knew?
Well, you do now. But it was kind of interesting. Williams-Sonoma. I did not realize the connection of Williams-Sonoma, the retail store.
The fancy cookware store.
The fancy cookware store. So this is the history of, I guess, kind of like peppermint bark in general, but specifically why it became a thing. So in 1998, Williams-Sonoma debuted the, all caps, the original peppermint bark, trademarked, which is now often copied, but never matches in quality or flavor. I say this, I had peppermint bark at my wedding. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't.
Crafted in small batches with no added artificial flavor or color. This top quality bark, is made with custom blend of chocolate, and triple distilled peppermint oil. And Williams-Sonoma spends 12 weeks every year making peppermint bark just for the holidays. They add it to their cookware responsibilities, but this is a thing for them. And it took more than 20 rounds of testing to settle on the final perfect recipe for their peppermint bark. And it takes more than 24 hours to make a batch from start to finish.
Wow.
And today, 18 products bear the peppermint bark name at Williams-Sonoma.
And this is almonds and chocolate and peppermint, essentially.
And so, but I get all these, if anyone's ever interested, on nationaltoday.com. And it's funny because they added all of these like stats about polling. And one was like, Americans love peppermint bark. We asked 2,000 Americans how they feel about peppermint bark. 53% love it.
There are 330 million people in this country, and you ask 2,000, and we all love peppermint bark now?
And then they have a map of the country, and
where it's pro peppermint bark.
Yeah, which states are more or less pro peppermint bark? So states that love peppermint bark the most: California, 86%.
Wow.
Washington State, 90%. Texas, Oklahoma, 80%. We're just shot. We're 75. Wisconsin is 75% of us love peppermint bark. So there's some fun facts for you today. It is also National Cookie Cutter Day.
Oh, I love that.
Do you know that originally, before they were called cookie cutters, they were called biscuit cutters?
That makes sense. But it came from England.
Well, kind of.
Oh.
So some more fun history. Cookie cutters made of ceramic or wood were first actually found in Egypt in the year 2000 BC.
Come on.
Yeah.
What were they, like sacred cat cutouts or something?
That's a good idea. The cat eyeliner.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's just what it says, that there was something to mold or to cut dough of some sort.
That's fascinating.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah.
And then, but it wasn't until the 16th century that cookie cutters became popular. And it was because of the gingerbread man or woman, if you want to get into that
PC
ridiculousness. The gingerbread pattern. So the kings started this custom, and gingerbread cookies were frequently served to Queen Elizabeth I's court. And then once the gingerbread cookies became famous, it was basically people started talking about gingerbread biscuits, and more bakeries around the region in England started using the cookie cutters, making these gingerbread cookies. And then by the 1800s, tin cookie cutters were easy to find at any small shop. And then it got the first biscuit cutter in the United States popped up around 1875. And there you go. Do you have a favorite cookie cutter? Are you a baker?
I do like to bake.
Okay.
And I will get together usually with one of my sisters and nieces, a couple of my nieces, and we will do a Saturday and do some baking. I have my mother's original cookie cutters, and she probably got hers in the 50s, I'm assuming. So there's a reindeer cutout that I really like.
Okay.
It rarely looks like a reindeer.
I was going to say, that's when the intricate cookie cutter, you have to be careful, because once if there's too thin on one side, then all of a sudden there's nubs breaking off and you can't recognize what it's supposed to be. And
we always lose the antlers, and then it looks like a bad dog. And there's an old-fashioned bell-shaped.
Bells, I always feel like, were pretty easy. Like, it was hard to screw up a bell.
Yeah. And been pretty easy to decorate too, because we always find that the first dozen cookies, I'll get really intricate with toothpicks, and designing and following all the lines. And by the 37th cookie, you're like, just give me some frosting. I'm throwing some sprinkles on it. We're done.
Just move on.
Wrap it up.
That sounds about how it went in our house too. But
what about you? Was that a family thing for you?
It was certainly a family thing. And now it's like, I don't know. It's funny how the home ownership marriage thing, all of a sudden I feel like we're building traditions. So we will be decorating, speaking of National Christmas Lights, Debbie Bry is currently at my house. I think she's Christmasifying my house at the moment, but we're decorating the tree tonight.
She's gonna elfify your house.
Oh my God. Well, our house growing up every year, I think I literally heard my brother in the other room when I was prepping for the show today. He's like, Mom, you're like the mother of Christmas. And she goes all out. And so it's always been like, now that I have a house, I think the desire to decorate like in the interior, on the exterior, and get into it and have storage for said Christmas decorations to sit there 11 months out of the year.
Get a colored bin. Get a green or red bin so you know where all the
which
stuff-
ones it is.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're certainly starting to build our own traditions for Mike and I, but certainly in our house growing up, Christmas cookies, all the cookies were a thing. But I remember that specifically. It's pretty much what you said. There were certain shapes that were easier to make sure that they kept in their form.
Yep.
There were certain shapes that were more fun to decorate. But then by the end, and it was always messy. You can probably imagine that I am not a kid who colors in the lines. And so I certainly was not a kid who was necessarily good at like frosting cookies.
So you weren't doing toothpick art like I was. No.
It just got everywhere. And so, but yeah, I'm excited. I think tomorrow, as far as getting back to the question of what Christmas spectacles in Southeast Wisconsin do you always try to take in?
Well, and I was thinking about this driving home yesterday. If you head eastbound from Highway 100 on Burleigh, and so there's a golf course that will be on the south side. There is a house on the north side that must have been an old farmhouse that's probably from the late 1880s. They go all out, man. And it's a big 2-story. So I'm always really impressed with people who can do the arch, in the front of their house that requires an extension ladder, because that's not easy to do.
It's literally putting your neck on the line for your Christmas lights.
Yes, it is. And they do every single window and just nothing is missed. It's really spectacular. And of course, as you mentioned, Candy Cane Lane in West Dallas has been there forever. I believe Burna Botanical Gardens does something now.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
I might be wrong on that, but I know that there's a big display in Waukesha. And yeah, there's always something to go see.
Yeah, so we want to hear from you. 844-967-2789. What are the big Christmas lights or displays in Rapids or Wausau or Amory? Or I should be able to think. I'm sure the Capitol's all lit up in Madison.
Oh, I would imagine.
But other things in Madison, Richland Center. I'm trying to think of other. Isn't there another thing in the Milwaukee area that is? I'm like the Chinese light displays that are it's really beautiful.
Is that for Christmas though?
I thought it was during December.
We'll check.
Which doesn't feel like there's necessarily a Chinese holiday that overlaps with that, but I don't. I should look that up at the break.
We'll check during the break. And we have a cookie text too that will come back.
We'll come back and talk
read.
that. So yeah, we want to hear from you. 844-967-2789. That is 844-96-PARTY. What are the Christmas displays that you always look forward to that you want to recommend that other people check out and appreciate, because it is National Christmas Lights Day. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about doing stuff for the holidays, traditions, things going on this weekend as far as National Christmas Lights and all the things that are happening. So stick with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Christmas vacation.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast at civicmedia.us or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.
This local musical interlude is brought to you by Max Inc. Radio. Dana Perry.
What am I fearing? Why do I worry at all? 'Cause I can feel that.
Listen to Max Inc. Radio every Saturday and Sunday, 6 p.m. to midnight. Download the podcast at maxincradio.com. We are local music.
So all you folks out there, if you haven't registered to vote, register to vote. Get ready to vote. There are so many things on the ballot this November at our freedom, our liberty, and our way of life. But we'll get to all of that this evening.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM. Missed your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And we're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Daytime highs approaching 34 this afternoon. Under clear skies, southerly winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Mainly clear tonight. Lows level off around 27. Highs level off around 47. Tomorrow, cloudy skies. Turning cooler Saturday and Sunday with highs from the mid-20s to the upper 30s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 30 degrees.
WAUK 540 AM, Franklin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. If you don't know that song and why Jane Matanair, in all of her wisdom, would play that song with this topic, it's because it's called Light 'Em Up, Up.
It's a great song.
It is a really good song.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about it's National Christmas Lights Day.
Yay.
And so probably at a lot of spots, I think Christmas lights and holiday lights and displays have already been up. But certainly now is the appropriate time that they should all be up. And we're asking you, what's your favorite display in your area in Wisconsin? Is it a singular house? Is it a park? Is it a botanical garden? 844-967-2789. I know the collaborative effort that goes into Candy Cane Lane in Southeast Wisconsin, because it's just, I feel like it must be part of the contract when you buy a house in that neighborhood.
You got to know what's coming.
You're like, well, this is what we do. As a neighborhood, every single house goes all out, and then thousands of people drive zigzag around the block looking at everyone's house
for weeks
for the month of December.
Yes.
And so you don't want to be the one house that decided, well, we're not really into it. What do you do if you move into one of those houses and you're Jewish?
Put up a big lighted menorah.
There you go. All right, yeah.
I think that would
work. It is a spectacle, though, to have that much collaborative effort
and everybody puts
buy-in.
up with it.
Yeah,
Everybody puts up with it. Because it's got to be inconvenient when you want to get out of your own driveway.
Yes. Although that is one of the things that I appreciate. This was not a thing in Madison, I don't think, unless there's certain neighborhoods. But so often in the neighborhoods around Milwaukee, there's the back alley to get to your garage.
True.
Versus needing to back in, like your driveway that backs into a traffic line of Christmas light viewers. and so I don't know if that neighborhood is one of those where at least you have a back way to escape your house if it
to your garage.
Yeah.
We had a texter from the 262. Thank you so much for texting in at 844-967-2789. Previous break, we were talking about Christmas cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, my wife makes like 18 different kinds of cookies each Christmas. We give cookie plates to all our friends and family and our kids' teachers. My contribution, bourbon balls.
Ooh.
And some Buckeyes. I don't know what Buckeyes are.
Buckeyes are I think they're chocolate covered peanut butter.
Ooh.
And they look like little Buckeye nuts.
Oh, that sounds really
not to be
good.
confused with the Ohio Buckeyes.
That's from Dave and the Shaw. And
thank you,
he
Dave.
said that the Chinese lights display was in fall. That's what I thought.
Oh, okay. That's why I was like, maybe I'm forgetting this, and it's because it really has nothing to do with Christmas. But one of my friends recently shared a recipe with me because I am a big fan of bourbon, as we learned when Steve Palick was here. And he told us the Kentucky Chew, which I still am doing.
Do you?
I do.
And it does make a difference.
It does make a difference.
I thought it was a joke when he first explained.
If you missed that episode, radio legend Steve Palick was here before I left for vacation, and big bourbon fan. I am a big bourbon fan. And he taught us that the right way to drink bourbon is in your first sip, you have to like swish it around your mouth like it's
like you're chewing
like
something.
mouthwash, or like you're chewing something, but also like it's like mouthwash, and that makes every subsequent sip, you can actually taste the bourbon versus the alcohol.
And instead of it just burning, it's smooth.
But I mentioned that because I'm going to try in my limited baking, all the extra time I have to bake.
Yes, I'm sure you'll just be whipping up 18 batches of cookies.
Bourbon Rice Krispies.
That should be pretty easy.
Right? I grew up and I always was a bigger fan of the peanut butter Rice Krispies more than the traditional just marshmallow ones. But I'm interested in trying these out because that sounds very good.
I'm just wondering, those poor Krispies aren't very hardy. Doesn't the bourbon just make them go?
I don't know. I guess
and they just evaporate.
Well, I'll make them and then I'll bring them in.
We'll find out.
We can find out.
All right.
But I looked up some of the other fun traditions, light displays around the state. So I guess up in Green Bay, it's the Garden of Lights at the Green Bay Botanical Gardens, which looks beautiful. It looks like there's a big walkway with a bunch of arches. It doesn't look like you necessarily had to get anyone had to get on a ladder to put them on, but it's beautiful. And then Olin Park, I forgot that. Olin Park in Madison has a bunch of different light displays of like characters and a Green Bay Packers helmet and stuff. The obviously Riverside Park in Milwaukee near downtown,
I didn't know they did
That's when I first moved to Milwaukee. I lived right by the Fiserv Center. Fiserv Forum, sorry. And I remember I moved here in October, so it was pretty recently after I had moved. All of those lights go up right on the river, and
that's spectacular.
It was really pretty. Wisconsin Christmas Carnival of Lights, which happens in where is this? I don't even know where it says that happens, but Oshkosh has the Celebration of Lights. In Sheboygan, they have Making Spirits Bright. These are just this is just making me happy looking at all these pictures. There's Country Christmas in Pewaukee, Holiday Festival of Lights and Jingle Bus in Milwaukee. What's the Jingle Bus?
So you don't have to get cold.
Oh.
So you jump on board the Jingle Bus.
And they just take you to see all of the lights?
I think so.
Oh, that's fun.
And certainly if you have munchkins.
Yeah. Who get cold and
them
tired.
to walk so that's a nice way to get around and so you can see everything.
The Rotary Winter Wonderland in Marshfield and Candy Cane Lane in West Allis, as we already talked about.
There's no excuse if you need a fix on Christmas lights, you can certainly find it.
The Rotary Botanical Garden Holiday Light Show in Janesville. And so what did we miss? Let us know. 844-967-2789. Which Christmas light show are you looking forward to that we did not just list off? We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what is American that's super weird to other cultures. All right, this is As Goes Wisconsin.
My songs know what you did in the dark. So light 'em up.
The Shaw 101 FM, New Berlin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show or game, find it wherever you get your podcasts or on our website, civicmedia.us.
Catch Up North News Radio with Pat Kreitlow at its brand new time, 6 to 8 a.m. weekdays.
The city of Shanghai started administering an inhalable COVID-19 vaccine. I hear a lot of you saying the same thing I had in my head. I don't know about that.
As long as they're not just crop dusting everyone.
Crop dusting, that's exactly what I think people would be fearful of. I would not trust the Chinese government. I would trust people who really know about inhaling something and the good that it does you. Of course, I'm talking about Dom and Crute.
Ready for our little forest adventure?
There's a forest closer than you think. Find a park or forest near you and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by USDA.
I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. One issue President Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron have differences with is climate change. After their meeting at the White House today, President Biden says there are glitches to deal with.
So there's tweaks that we can make that can fundamentally make it easier for European countries to participate and or be on their own. But that is something that is a matter to be worked out.
Through an interpreter, Macron says the goal is to work together on climate change.
We want to succeed together, not one against the other. It's been clear. This is the outcome of our discussions this morning, and this is exactly the philosophy that I share, and it is the one that we need.
Macron has made it clear he and other European leaders are concerned about incentives in the new law known as the Inflation Reduction Act that favor American-made climate technology, and that includes electric vehicles. I'm Ed Donahue.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Natner with your headlines. The Wisconsin Election Commission has agreed to postpone a massive data request for statewide voter registration lists, including contact information, until it's decided who will be the Republican chair of the Assembly Elections Committee this month. The current chair, Representative Janelle Brandtjen, initially requested 20 years of data in January. This is a limited version of that request. The WEC estimates it will cost over $49,000 and take close to 2 weeks to fulfill that request. Brandtjen expelled from the closed GOP caucus in November after her colleagues said they couldn't trust her. It's unlikely that Assembly Speaker Robin Vos will reappoint her as committee chair. The information will likely still be of interest. A Marquette poll showed that 60% of Republicans surveyed are either not too confident or not confident at all in the results of the 2020 election. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK, 540 AM.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down. When you're strange, faces come out of the rain.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. So I found this on BuzzFeed, as you know, they're always doing something that's sometimes silly, but it feels like that's a website that just has to pump out so much content that they're just constantly looking. Their articles are stuff that's happening somewhere else. So, you know, I think yesterday, the subreddit that we found, I think I found that on BuzzFeed, but sometimes they're silly and sometimes they're really interesting, because I think it is. And in some of these forums where people are sharing experiences, it's fun to be like, oh yeah, that is real. And one of which is, you know, we in America, we have certain ways of doing things. There's stuff that's more regional, like as we're in the holiday season, cannibal sandwiches in Wisconsin. That is debatable. I am not a fan. My husband and my mother really like it.
No kidding.
Really like it. Yeah. But you know, there's some stuff as Americans that we do that in other cultures I think is very weird. Is there one that you can think of, Paul, off the top of your head, that he knows he's just like, why do Americans do this?
He thinks our election cycle is way too long.
Well, I think we all think that.
Yeah, but that's one thing that he comments on frequently.
Well, and it's funny to think of it as you step outside of what you just assume is normal. I remember in my sociology, like 101 class, I think this is a pretty standard exercise for freshmen in college when they take sociology for the first time. And it's like an academic exercise of, I forget if it's at NAC, either NASERMA, I forgot how they pronounced it, but it's this like anthropological study of a society. And they start explaining like they use metal to like cut their face and all of these like beauty routines that this culture did. And in reality, the name of the culture or the society is just American spelled backwards. And so it's explaining all of these things that we do in our society,
and which we concern,
is just normal. It's shaving
normal.
your face.
Yeah.
It's men shaving their face.
Right.
It's women shaving their legs. But putting it in the context of like an objective anthropologist explaining and discovering this culture. And so I was reading this yesterday of what people were saying that they thought was so weird. I was thinking about that exercise of you just assume what your life is normal until you get outside of yourself and you talk to people who don't think that's normal. And so, some of these are really interesting. So, we live, especially in this state, Badgers, Marquette, actually, that's a big game this weekend as far as they're playing each other, that long-lasting rivalry. But college sports in other countries are not a thing.
At all?
No.
Not even soccer?
So college sports, particularly football and basketball, the rest of the world loves soccer, but nobody gives a hoot about it at the university level.
Wow.
In the state, yeah. And so the state, like I think for a lot of young people, if you're that good, you just go professional. And so there's not this like NCAA machine that has created so much money for universities, so much money for bets and all the merchandise and everything, like the entire industry that is created around college sports. Speaking of which, I had a friend send me, I have a good friend who lives in Chicago. He went to Ohio State. Big people from the Ohio State, either from Ohio or went to that school, are another level as far as how serious they take their football. He sent me, he's like, this was a little too soon because they lost this last weekend to Michigan. And so that's their big rivalry.
Yeah.
And he's married to a woman who went to Michigan. So that is always a big, I think it's a hectic day in their household, which it's troubling because it's always around Thanksgiving. So I think it sparked some tension. But he sent me this the other day and let me see if I can find it. Because it is so funny that we as a society, not all of us obviously, but like put this much pressure on 19-year-olds. So he goes, now I can't find it.
That figures.
But it's basically, I'm going to go pout in my basement because the 19-year-old can't perform under pressure of the school that I went to 20 years ago. Which is true. Another thing, bumper stickers.
No one else does that?
The comment here was bumper stickers. Sometimes I get the impression that people put their entire political philosophy in the form of a bumper sticker on their car. I don't know if that's ubiquitous. There's just some people who choose to do that. But I think bumper stickers are maybe more American than they show up in other countries.
That's really interesting because we've traveled all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen graffiti in every place that we've gone. But I don't know that I've seen any bumper stickers. Not even one.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that really is.
This one you'll probably ice.
Oh, ice.
Yeah. So the fact that we consistently have ice filled to the brim of a glass before any drink is poured is very much an American thing. Well, ice is not as popular or as used as much. And certainly, at least in Europe, but I would imagine in other continents as well.
Why would you want to water down the booze?
Or I guess if you like room temperature water or water down your soda or whatever it is you're drinking. Yeah. But we like our things cold.
But I think
iced coffee.
Yeah, I know. But you've had beer in England and it's room temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband will vow to the death that it is more fragrant and flavorful than when it's super, super cold.
Well, that's proven, right? Like there is a specific temperature you're supposed to keep wine at, whether it's different for white wine versus red wine. But even red wine should be like, I think most, if I'm getting this right, is supposed to be a little bit cooler, but you can't have it be too cool because that's why if something tastes bad by adding cooler temperature, if you make it colder, it doesn't taste as bad. But I think that works both ways, that it doesn't taste as good if it's colder.
If it's too cold.
All right. So another one, food coloring.
You got to have food coloring for Christmas cookies.
Yes, but I think that it's like in most things. So this person said, when I moved from Japan to the US, I was surprised at how colorful American foods were. These days, Americans are now more into organic, natural stuff, so I see it less. But it took me a while to realize that prevalent blue raspberry is not real.
I don't think we understand or realize just how many dyes are in our foods.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and things that are dyed a certain color to look at, like think about Gatorade. Like, there's no way that just because of the flavoring that's added to Gatorade that it has to be bright red or yellow
or green
or orange.
Yeah.
But yeah, another one, peanut butter and jelly.
They're missing out.
I agree.
They're missing peanut butter is one of the greatest things in the world.
I agree, but I wonder if it's peanut butter mixed with there's a different combo. Peanut butter and pickles?
Never tried it.
I've never tried it either.
I keep hearing about it. I might have to go out on the limb and try a peanut butter and pickle sandwich.
I would try it. There's very few things I feel like I wouldn't try.
It's got to be crunchy, though.
Here's one. Stores that are open for 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I guess so.
This person said, I was in Chicago working with a colleague who lived in Switzerland, and he suddenly realized around midnight that he needed a network cable to configure a mobile router for the job the next morning. I told him that I'd meet him in the hotel lobby, and we drive out to Walmart. He was shocked.
That the stores were still open.
The store, that you could get something at midnight. And I'm not sure that's true everywhere. Like, I certainly know, depending on the bigger the city you're in, the more likely that things are going to be open later, whether that's restaurants. Like driving home from, if you go to a Sunday night game in Green Bay, by the time you get back to Milwaukee on a Sunday night, there's no restaurants open. That's not none, but like not many.
Most are closed.
Yeah.
And I think the last couple of years with the pandemic, I think that has changed. I think because they're having a hard time finding staff, I don't know how many 24/7 places are open anymore just because of staffing issues.
Yeah, and that could be. I'm sure in New York it hasn't changed.
Probably not.
City never sleeps. Chicken and waffles?
Not my thing.
Not my thing either, but that is...
I don't get it.
Yeah, but I think, so maybe that's not... I'm trying to think of like the lens of like how much is like, yeah, that seems very normal, but for someone else, maybe that's not.
Chicken and waffles seems very Southern to me.
So going back to what you said about Paul and the political cycle, political signs, lawn signs.
They don't do that.
Signs outside people's houses stating an opinion or belief, such as "In this house we support." You know, it's like Black Lives Matter. That's one that obviously I think I would put in my lawn. I haven't, but I would. Or like huge Trump flags, or all the like, please put your lawn sign to show your support. I guess to people not from this country, that is a weird thing.
I think
it is also a weird thing.
I think so too, and I think they still value privacy more than we do. Where America's like, I'm sharing everything with you now.
Yeah.
Whether you want me to or not, I'm going to share it with you because I have to be authentic. So I'm going to spill all my guts.
Yeah.
And I miss the days when we used to hide a few things.
That's interesting. All right. Here's a good one, especially in this state. Processed cheese.
You mean processed cheese food?
Yeah, things that are not actual food, like things that are cheese products, not actual cheese.
Cheese-like.
Because that's what the thing, right? Kraft singles can't actually, because they're only like 98% cheese. So they actually can't be qualified as cheese. They're a cheese product.
We grew up on Velveeta, man. We would have starved without grilled cheese made from Velveeta, processed cheese food.
But it's also the non-pasteurized cheese, which you can get in Europe and you can't get here mostly, right?
I believe so. And unpasteurized milk too.
Unpasteurized.
That was becoming a big thing, I want to say, in the last decade in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But there are issues around that. I don't know that I would jump into unpasteurized milk.
Yeah. Driving everywhere.
But that's because they have excellent public transportation.
No, I know, but this is just a list of things that people who don't live here, when they visited, saying how weird it was for them when they were like, oh,
to experience.
and here you have to drive a car everywhere.
But don't you think? I think a lot of people who have never visited the States do not appreciate just how vast it is.
Oh, certainly.
That's like when I went to Australia, and you look at a map and it's like, well, that looks pretty big, but how big can it be? It's humongous.
Yeah.
And it's just perspective. It's hard to get that perspective unless you're actually there.
I had that lesson. I forgot there was a trivia question, and what is the biggest? I think what is the biggest island? And at first I said Australia. They're like, well, it's not considered an island; it's a continent.
It's a continent. And
so the answer is Greenland. And I was like, well, how much bigger can Australia be than Greenland? It's a lot bigger. I looked it up. It's like twice the size.
Yeah, it's huge. It really is huge.
You're like, this is probably not the proportions that you think it is.
I bet 9 Greenlands would fit in Australia.
I don't think it's 9. I think it was about double.
Okay.
But it was, I think in my mind it was closer than it actually ended up being.
Yeah, it's a big place.
But then this one's interesting, which it's not surprising, but it's interesting. Commercials about pharmaceuticals. In other countries, they don't advertise drugs that you can take.
And that's really smart.
It is smart.
But think how short commercial breaks would be on, well, you probably don't watch network news, but I do. What would all the erectile dysfunction manufacturers do if they couldn't constantly talk about it on television?
Yeah, how you can solve your problem.
Which again is
ask your doctor.
Is oversharing.
I always thought about that. I actually didn't book any commercials while I was out in LA. I auditioned for some, but I never, which is kind of a bummer because at least back then, you could make a lot. If you have one national commercial, that was you
were set.
That was a salary. That was an annual salary.
Oh, yeah.
And it was always funny to me when you think about the actors who get the STD commercials or the erectile dysfunction commercials. And you're like, where are you in your career? You're like, yep. I'm willing to be that guy.
I could do that.
Pay me.
I can do that. Exactly.
I'll do it.
I need the
money. Ranch dressing, which I think Charlie Barron's confirmed that when he said he went to London. And he's like, you can't really find ranch anywhere.
But my husband, who is English, eats this disgusting salad cream. Which is
not salad cream, not salad dressing?
No, it's called salad cream.
Okay.
And I think it's like mayonnaise, but not.
Well, mayonnaise is much more popular in Europe, fresh mayonnaise. But mayonnaise is popular here, but the difference of, I think that especially in French, who would see our tub of Hellmann's and be like, that's not mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is something that you make fresh and you dip your fries in.
Right.
That is, I don't know what that is. I don't want that.
Yeah, but I'm not taking any criticism about ranch dressing with the salad cream issue.
All right. Well, that was a fun recollection of things that we do that doesn't happen other places, and that's okay.
Sure. But you have to embrace who we are.
You embrace who you are, but also embrace other cultures and the things that they do that are different. All right. Well, we're at the end of the show almost. We're going to take one more break. But we'll still be here when we come back to wrap up the show. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Cardinal put out these weird, sad videos interviewing incapacitated elders in their nursing homes that don't have the ability to say, don't use me as your political prop.
If they are what you say they are, then you shouldn't be doing it how you did it.
Yes, it was the kids using the parents as props. Well, my old man hasn't talked since 76. Of course, he would have voted for Trump. That's the evidence. Videos. People that can't talk.
It is wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
Check out the entire podcast library at darnwi.com.
I'm 54, so it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save even in your 50s can really make a difference. At aceyourretirement.org, in just 3 minutes, you'll get a free personalized retirement plan. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
It's easy to listen to your favorite local radio station anytime. Download the Civic Media app from the Apple or Google Play Store, then listen live or whenever you want from anywhere for free.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Sunny skies and calm this afternoon with a high of 34. Winds out of the south, 8 to 15 miles an hour. Lows dip down to about 27 tonight, mainly clear. High temperatures reach up to 47. Tomorrow, cloudy skies expected. Ample sunshine expected Saturday with daytime highs approaching 26. 37 Sunday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 30 degrees.
A progressive voice from Beaver Dam to Kenosha. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Oh.
It's been kind of the unofficial theme throughout the show today.
Yeah. You want to say it?
Little Fleetwood Mac. Christine McVie from Fleetwood Mac died yesterday, 79 years old. I didn't realize she was that old.
How does that mean they're all probably around late 70s, early 80s?
I looked up everybody because I thought that Mick Fleetwood was the oldest. And actually, Christine was the oldest at 79.
Okay.
Mick, I think, is 75. Lindsey Buckingham is 73. And Stevie Nicks, I think, is 72.
Okay. So she was, I mean, they're all kind of the same age range. But,
what a very influential in my teenage years growing up. Oh, Fleetwood Mac was huge. I saw them at the Old County Stadium back in the day with Kenny Loggins. It was great. And Stevie Nicks, who didn't love the Welsh Witch.
I know. I mean, still to this day, Stevie Nicks' voice is just...
There's nothing else like it.
Oh, God. And, yeah, it's such an interesting thing to the people. And they kind of, I don't think Christine McVie has done much. I mean, I guess every once in a while they've done like a reunion concert, haven't they?
She did some solo stuff too.
Yeah, but like in the last
decade, no.
No.
I think I had read an article with her a number of years ago that she was living life in the English countryside and having a good time. Probably still writing songs because she was always a very prolific songwriter.
Yeah. But it's just like the reflection point of people who you maybe haven't thought about in a while, but then you think back and you're like, oh, they impacted my life. The songs the concerts I saw are the songs that they wrote and, or if it's an actor, the movies that they were in.
Who do you remember from your teenage years that was impactful musically?
Ani DeFranco.
It's so rebellious.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't think that's an artist who I think she's still making music.
Not very prominently.
But not very prominently. But that probably is very telling. The range of my music was like Ani DeFranco and then
Show tunes. Yes, there's wide range there. Ani DeFranco and Rent.
It was fun. I just now I'm having like flash memories of I saw her at the Orpheum when I was 15 or 16, and that was I just remember because she is a unbelievable lyricist and she's a poet, right? And she's a poet who can sing. But she I think that was very much out of like the Lilith Fair feminist musician era of a very different, not like Spice Girls kind of girl power, but for lack of a better word, I think there was so much of my own political beliefs that I found inside of her music that now I probably will listen. That's probably what I will listen to on my drive home today. Because again, like you haven't thought about it in a long time. And it's not like she's come out with a ton of new music. And if she has, it hasn't come across my iPhone. But certainly if there was one person that I probably listened to the most that had the biggest impact on me as a teenager, it was her. For sure.
Cool.
I didn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping me bring back that memory.
For dredging up some old memories.
Trying to think of who else. I mean, certainly Dave Matthews Band, but I feel like I just liked his music. I'm not sure it made it like it formed anything about how I saw the world or like had like lyrics that moved me so much that I was like, oh, like things that it was no Defying Gravity, which I almost got tattooed on my body as I've mentioned before.
How did you manage to talk yourself out of that?
I don't know. I have because I have one singular tattoo, and I think I've told that story before, that it is it's a compass rose that I drew that is on the top of my foot. It's very dainty. but it is indeed backwards.
See, this is why you got to be careful.
You got to be careful. But I have an entire secret Pinterest board of different tattoos that I wanted at some point that I was contemplating. There was like a lotus flower at one point. I think there was a hummingbird. There was different quotes. And I never pulled the trigger on any of them, which I think speaks to my lack of decisiveness. But certainly, my brother always tells a story. He's like, you got that one tattoo, and I was so nervous that, because once you get one, you just get more and more. He's like, I just thought you were gonna be covered. I'm so happy that you're not covered in tattoos. And I was like, thanks, Ben. But yeah, I just have the one. I probably will only have the one. But at one point, there was many more I thought I was going to get.
Pinterest board.
Pinterest board. Maybe I'll show it to you someday, Jane.
My sister and I, one of my sisters and I had this discussion, and it was the big trend to get a saying in Mandarin Chinese.
Yes.
To get a tattoo in Mandarin Chinese. And I said, Suzanne, do you think Chinese people are getting tattoos in Lithuanian, which is our background? No, I don't. And if you want to have some esoteric phrase tattooed on your body, then at least have it in Lithuanian. No one's going to know the difference anyway.
I don't want to out her, but there is a person in my life who has a Chinese symbol, and I think she thought it meant like to restart or to be
new beginnings.
I think it was
rebirth.
And finally someone translated it for her who actually does speak Mandarin, and they're like, yeah, that means to be birthed.
Whoops.
Or something. It was like a little, it was close, but not quite.
Yeah, you gotta be careful when it's a symbol like that. Yeah, it's tricky language.
Maybe, but who knows? I mean, I knew what the compass was supposed to be, and I wasn't paying attention enough to see that they flipped the transparent paper. That north is not where it should be.
Whoops. I'm just gonna do
you have 0, right?
I have 0. Maybe I'll do happy birthday in Lithuanian and just confuse people for the rest of my life.
Do you speak any Lithuanian?
No.
Do you speak any other languages?
I speak a little Spanish. I speak a very little Russian.
Really? What can you say in Russian?
Budget.
What does that mean?
I have no idea.
So you can't really see it. You know a word.
No, I mean, I know a couple. Yes. And Zdravstvuyte, which I believe is hello. And do svidaniya. Niet.
Niet is a good one.
So yeah, but if I'm around Spanish speakers long enough, I will start picking it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think understanding it is easier than speaking it, depending upon how fast they're speaking.
I think that's in general. I think there's that divide between understanding something and then knowing how to actually speak it. And that's the truth for anyone who actually can not only multiple languages, but when you are born and raised in a certain country and then you come, you move and you have to learn a new language as an adult, and then you succeed in the people who can do that.
It's a gift.
Oh my gosh. 'Cause I tried to learn French. That is a hard language. And I would never even got close. There was like vocabulary that I could maybe pick up when people were speaking, but I was like, this is a lost cause.
Don't you just wish we had started in childhood, when you're soaking in all of that knowledge?
Absolutely.
Would have been a little easier.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us on this December 1st. We'll be back tomorrow. Lots of guests tomorrow. But this has been a fun show. A little easier way back in after 2 weeks off. But thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow. This is As Goes Wisconsin.